Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Chris.
I got him here.
Great. Is he ready?
I had to go out in the cold to do it.
Good.
Y'all got snow?
Yeah, we did.
We just got cold. We're about 43 degrees. Wind blowing. Here he is.
All righty.
Oh.
Hi, Gordon.
Yeah.
So Jason's here with me and Ray Payne's here with me, and they're just going to be sitting in to listen how you and I have our conversations.
Well, that's scary.
He goes, that's scary. I haven't put you on speakerphone yet, but I just wanted to real quick. I'm going to try something different to try to help speed up the process instead of actually taking the letter and entering it into the system and then calling you. I'm going to read the letter ahead of time.
Okay.
Okay. And basically the reason I want to do that is because I'm going to drag and naturally speak the letter at the same time. So I'm going to read the letter first. We're going to start off with airbags. We're starting off with airbags with A, with the letters that I have that you provided in regards to airbags with 1990 I got right here.
2 blondes and a convertible.
2 blondes and a convertible.
2 airbags.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Gordon, no problem. I'm just setting up right now Microsoft Word, and I'm going to put you on speakerphone, too, just so you know. What you're going to hear from me, Gordon, before I ask you a question, you're going to hear me say, go to sleep. And I don't mean for you to go to sleep. I'm going to put my dictation box to sleep, okay? That way it doesn't record unnecessary information. Okay. I'm going to put you on speakerphone. Hold on. I'm just setting up right now.
Welcome to Airbag 101.
Welcome to Airbags 101. Hey, Ray can hear you. Say hi.
Hi, Gordon.
Yeah.
That's Ray Payne. He's going to be helping us out on Sundays to help speed up, if he can put in maybe 20 hours a month, help us out with taking this information out of your, turning it into product. He signed a confidentiality agreement, and he is very excited about this. He thinks it's a great idea, and, he thinks it's unbelievable, so let's see here. I'm going to read this letter that I have. 3 calls, not counting 91.
Is this an answer to a letter that I wrote?
This looks like the answer, but I think I need to read. Do you want me to read the letter first so we can
That's fine.
determine what the symptom is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Gordon. Any questions about the 1990 Corvette first? You call. Okay. Okay. I'm going to just read the question, and then I'm going to read the answer. And then I'm going to say go to sleep, and that doesn't mean for you. It's just for my computer to go to sleep. But I'm going to record this because this will actually, it's just cutting out time. Okay, here I go. The letter says, wait a minute. Are there any recalls campaigns other than the seatbelt recall? This is on a 1990. And also under the 3-year 36-mile warranty, they've had to take the Corvette in 3 times because the inflation restraint light came on. Each time the light was fixed. Recently I took it in again for the same problem, comma. Now, no longer under warranty, comma. The problem while under warranty was left and right sensors forward discriminating. This time I'm told, open paren, no warranty, close paren, I need a new computer, comma, estimated to cost $1,000, period. In the meantime, comma, they somehow reset it so the light, open paren, INFL, period, RSTR, close paren, went out. Question, what are my chances of getting GM to help me with this bill? Okay, then you wrote, there were 3 recalls, not counting the 91-C25-C26 seatbelts recalls, period. They were, 90-C10, pertained to a ZR1- engine fuel line clip, 90-C09, park brake handle assembly, 90-C07, instrument wire rubbing at top center of dash. New paragraph. When SIR, open paren, airbag, close paren, fault codes 14-15-16 or 24-25-26 are set, the most common cause is the impact sensors are not grounded good enough to the uniframe, period. If the DERM, open paren, diagnostic energy reserve module, close paren, sees over 1 OHM difference in the sensor to the uniframe, the previous code will be set. In 1990, I received a lot of calls on these codes, period. The airbag will still work okay, but, the INFL and seatbelt indicator will stay on, noting a fault code is present, period. These codes will usually show the DERM to be defective that will cost the owner about $1,000 and still not fix the problem, period. I helped write the bulletin 90-436-9J relating to the correction of these misleading codes, period. New paragraph. The corrective process included cleaning the uniframe to sensor area and using a dielectric grease to stop any future corrosion, period. You can find this product at vettovet.com, period. New paragraph. Your DERM is probably okay, period. They usually don't go bad with these codes present, period. The erase procedure to remove the codes is very sensitive to the DERM. Is sometimes changed with nothing wrong with it, period. The new DERM that has no codes at the time of installation, will turn on the INFL and seatbelt indicator when the fault code reoccurs at a later time, period. New paragraph. The bulletin number is 90-436-9J. You should check it out, period. Go to sleep. Okay, Gordon.
Well, there's a lot. I didn't tell him how to check for the codes. I didn't tell him how to erase the codes. And since I wrote that letter, I don't recommend the dielectric grease, for it's a non-conductive grease. And they get it down in the threads and the sensor is not grounded. They're better off just cleaning the frame off, taking a sharp-edged star washer, and put it underneath the head of the bolts. The one's 13 millimeter and the other's 10 millimeter. Clean the frame off, and then clean the threads out with them. The small bolt is 6 millimeter 0.0 threads, and the large one's 8 millimeter 1.25 threads. And clean the frame out and bolt it down real tight, and you'll have a good ground. The dielectric grease may stop the corrosion, but if you get it in the threads or anything on that, it's going to create an unground situation. Now, to check for the codes.
What is the question, Gordon? What is the symptom we're dealing with?
The symptom is an inflatable restraint light comes on.
Got it.
And seatbelt light. The seatbelt light comes on as a backup in case the inflatable restraint bulb burns out.
Okay.
Because it's in a restraint system. SIR stands for Supplemental Inflatable Restraint. DERM is Diagnostic Energy Reserve Module. It has the capability of blowing the airbag up to 10 minutes after with no battery hooked up to it. So you should always disconnect the battery before you work on anything and wait 10 minutes, or it might set it off because you're moving an impact sensor or something. But you would have to take the battery out to change it anyhow on the left side under the battery box. The right side is under the AC evaporator housing. This is a seamless system. We only used it 1 year. 91 went to Delco, no more problems. It sets hard codes. Anytime it sees a code, it sets it and it has to be erased. In the later years, 91 and later, the code is only there at the time the problem's there. And it self-erases, does 7 times bulb test, self-test, and nothing there, it goes out. So to enter it, you go A to K, which is bottom right, going from left to right on the bottom. You go just G, H, J, K, so it's a fourth one from the left over to the right, and the top row of the ALDL connector is ground. Jumper from A to K, turn the key on, the inflatable restraint light will come on and it will flash code 12 once and then twice. It does this 3 times, and then any codes that are present will be flashed, and then it returns to code 12. If you have, when you get ready to clear it, take the impact sensors off and also check the connectors inside. They're a 3-wire round pin, and sometimes they get oxidized or loose. And
inside what?
Underneath the dash, where they hook into the dash harness.
And is there a how-to presentation for that?
Not a how-to on how to remove the panels. You would have to remove your lower panel with the light on it on both sides, and then you would have to take the connector. What I do is take electrical contact cleaner and clean it and put it together and then twist it and tape it real tight, and that way it prevents it ever from coming loose or makes better contact. It could just be loose and you get the same symptom. But of all, I would say one of the calls I got, and I got hundreds of calls on it, probably 1 out of 400 was a DERM, if that gives you an indication of what the dealers were doing.
First thing, so the sensor light comes on, it won't go off. The first thing, what are the causes? What could be some of the causes?
No, that is the causes, seeing 1 ohm variation on the resistance to ground.
Okay.
And what sometimes people do too is the seatbelt light will be on, but the inflatable restraint light won't. They take the bulb out to keep it, they can't get the code gone, so they take the bulb out, but the seatbelt light doesn't go away. It's in a cluster. So you'll have that symptom. And I've seen a lot of them. They just take the bulb out. Some put black tape over it. They do all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to check once you find out what codes it is, then you jumper a wire and get you a momentary switch or something with a wire lead, and if it helps. And ADK, you turn the key on, and this is a normally closed switch. And when you first see that inflatable restraint light come on, you unground it for exactly 3 seconds. Ground it back for 3 seconds, ground it again for 3 seconds, and then turn your key off and turn the key back on, and it will start flashing. When it reads code 12 6 times, you cleared the code.
So the light won't go off, but there's no problem, and we're just showing them how to clear the code at that one.
Well, no, there is a problem. Is that the sensors or they've not been cleaned right. Or they used dielectric grease, got it in the threads, or the connector's loose.
With the connector?
Absolutely make sure that sensor's got a perfect ground.
Okay. And you went through that on how to ground the sensor. You went through that, right, Gordon?
The presentation needs to be how you take a panel off.
Right.
Side panels.
Check the ground.
The side is a little more difficult in a way, is that you got to take the wheel housing, drop it out of the way because...
Why don't you go ahead and get into that one? What is the panel we're removing?
I call it gill panel, the lower panel below the hood.
To get to this sensor.
Panel.
Okay.
But you got to take your battery out.
Well, go ahead. Go into the step.
You have to take the battery box out on the left side. It's underneath the battery box. It's in an area for very high corrosion. The 91 did not require the ground. And later. It had a different connector. It went to a 3-pin Packard connector instead of a round pin Siemens connector.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I have this right, Gordon. I have the symptom about the sensor light for the airbag for 1990. What years does that apply to?
Only 90.
Only 90?
You probably will not have another call on airbag on later models.
Okay, and then also...
I have seen them, but very unusual.
Our fault tree, give me the recap on that. It could be a bad a grounded wire, correct?
No, it's just any connection on the 3-wire connection.
Okay.
You see one variation from A to C on the connector pins. Oh, you can't see over 1 ohm variation. 1 ohm is nothing on resistance. I mean, this is just almost got to be a perfect ground.
Okay, and that would cure the problem. You reset it and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And dealers are going to tell you the darn what it is. They may clear it, and it'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
Like he said, they done something. What they did, they just cleared it.
Mm-hmm.
That tells you the darn. If it cleared, it ain't the darn.
Right. That's good information right there.
Because if the darn was bad, it would never clear. It wouldn't matter how perfect it was. I mean, they were spending warranty $250,000 a month, and I called Jim SPO and told him, do not sell a derm unless they get my authorization. I would not send a dealer a derm. I got one bad derm in 2 months, and they were selling them $1,000 a shot, $250,000 a month warranty. And then they finally sent the Bolton out. The release engineer got on him all the time till finally he sent the Bolton out, and then didn't get any more problems with him.
But the easy, simple fix for a dealership is just to clear the derm, and then...
Easy, that's what they do.
Right.
And they come back and they say, hey, you need a... they don't make them anymore, for one thing. You can't get one.
Okay. So is there any how-to presentations?
The how-to presentation would be how to remove the lower dash panels. Any yellow-coated wires or airbag, never put a test light on them. You'll blow the derm. You'll blow the airbag. But you just take the battery cable off, wait 10 minutes before you do anything to anything.
All right. So that was just the basic how-to presentation, is how to get to...
How to remove the panels, how to take the impact sensors off.
Because we're trying to get to look for the connections, or for the ground.
Well, you have to clean the frame off with sandpaper. It's a painted frame underneath it. That's why the grounds are bad. They did not clean the paint off the frame.
That's the cure. That's what the cure would be.
Cure would be to make sure the connectors inside are good, sand the frame off, but you got to use a very sharp edge lock washer underneath the head of the bolt, not between the sensor and the frame, underneath the head of the bolt. So when you tighten it down, the bolt is grounding it, not the surface to the frame.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Well, when you clear it, all the lights will go off, and that's it. And if you see your seatbelt light on and you don't see your inflatable light come on when you turn the key on, somebody's taking the bulb out or it's burning out.
So we got the symptom. Is there any other symptoms?
No.
Okay, we got the cause, and we got the how-to. What about the challenge?
What sets a right or left impact sensor code?
I don't know.
Over 1 ohm variation in the A to C on the connector.
Okay.
Not ground.
That would be an advanced.
Yeah, it's not grounded good, but that's what the conditions is that sets the code.
Give me a dummy one, a stupid beginner's one. I don't know.
What does
trick one?
What's SIR stand for?
The SSR?
SIR.
SIR. That's a good one.
Subtle metal inflatable restraint.
Okay. Any special tools or any products that we should be promoting?
Well, you'll have to. Not really. If Mid-America sells a switch with an ALDL plug lead, where you plug it in, you don't have to jumper wires, because I made it for them when I worked for Mike, and they just got a normally closed switch with 2 wires with an ALDL connector like it's on my testers.
Okay, and you can only get it through...
That works a lot better. You got better timing on that 3-second erase system.
Okay. Well, maybe in this section here we should...
You get used to doing them. After the first couple of hundred, you can do it easier. No, when you first do it, I've done them half a dozen times. They're very sensitive.
What is sensitive?
To erase them to exactly 3 seconds.
I see.
And it's very sensitive, and the average dealer won't do it. And even if he's got his Tech 1, as some of them got 3-second timers in them that don't work, then they had Tech 1 in 1990 with a TK 0065 adapter for the timer on that. It's a body cartridge, but most average person is not going to even need that information. But some scanners have the 3-second timer in it, but don't rely on that working.
Looks like the next letter is probably the same. I'm reading here. It just talks about the dealer couldn't clear the...
That's it.
It's the same one.
Same thing.
How sensitive are the components in the SIR system?
Well, it's electrical components that you can't put a test light on or an ohm meter on.
Mm-hmm.
Very sensitive to that.
Sensitive.
You're liable to blow the airbag off.
Rating is for a good 90 sensor.
What is the ohm reading for a good 90 sensor?
Well, you would just go from the ground, the casing, the metal, and it's grounded to A or C, and then ohm meter across that and to see what your resistance is. But you cannot tell by that. When GM required that if you have an accident and an airbag is deployed, do not use the same sensor again.
Right.
Because you don't know whether it's going to work. There's like a ball bearing in there that moves, and you don't know whether it's going to work. There are several things. The Durham on a 1990 only takes 1 deployment, and you got to change it. On a 91 and later, it's 3 deployments. In other words, you could blow the airbag replace the airbag 3 times on a later model. 90 is just 1 time. So it's expensive. If you've had an accident, they require you to change airbag, to change the coil in the steering column. It's a ribbon coil because it'll burn it and then change the impact sensors and the derm. It's expensive when you have a wreck with one of those.
I'm gonna.
90 only, or is all
he
that?
said most of your airbags are 1990, right?
The problems you'll have will be 1990
On the derm.
On the derm.
Okay.
Yeah, but
you won't probably not see a problem later on. I mean, I've had maybe one airbag problem, and that's where somebody didn't plug up the airbag when they changed the steering column, didn't plug it up and set this code, and the inflatable restraint lights stayed on, and all they'd had to done was plug the wire oil up, and they would done a self-test and went out.
What year was that?
I don't know, 91 to 96.
Right, because what you're saying, mostly the airbag problems are going to be 1990.
Yeah, I'll say 99.99 will be 1990.
I'm going to go through real quick on this this letter because I see what this guy's asking, and you might be able to think of something else real quick. And I'm going to open up my dictation box again, so when I'm done dictating, I'll say go to sleep to the box. Mostly, he's saying that the INFL seatbelt indicators are on. The indicated repair was removing the corrosion from the impact sensors. It does not look difficult, but it looks dangerous. Is this type of repair?
It's not dangerous.
That should be done.
It's just that you got to have the battery disconnection and wait 10 minutes, but that's all.
Go to sleep. Hold on, Gordon.
Any wire repair.
Gordon, hold on a second. Let me finish reading this real quick, and I'm going to read your answer, and then you could feed off of that real quick, because I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. Hold on one sec. Wake up. Is this type of repair that should even be attempted by a hobbyist with reasonable mechanical skills? How sensitive are the components in the SIR system? And then you wrote, while working in the Plant Action Center answering the helpline calls, I received many calls on the airbag light coming on the 1990 Corvette, the supplemental inflatable restraint, the SIR. The 1991 and later cars, the airbag systems was a Delco brand. The 1990 impact sensors required the right and left frame impact sensors to have good ground to the uniframe. The airbag would still deploy if the parallel grounds were open. Codes 14, 15, 16, left sensor, and codes 24, 25, 26, right sensor were the most common codes. In 99% of the cases, corrosion between the sensors and the uniframe and or a loose connection from the sensor led to the airbag harness wire under the dash was the root cause of the fault codes. The control module, the DERM, this means it had the capacity of deploying the airbag for up to 10 minutes, such as the battery being thrown out in an accident, the requirement for deployment. That's the requirement, Gordon?
What?
A battery being thrown out?
No.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if it did not, it's got a capacitor in it.
Okay.
And if the battery was thrown out in an accident, it will deploy up to 10 minutes.
Okay. The sensor has to see an impact equal to 12 miles per hour solid impact, not off 30 degrees center line angle.
Yeah.
Period. The sensor must match the internal DERM signal, period. Hitting a sensor would not deploy the airbag, period. To clean the sensors, disconnect the battery and wait 10 minutes, period. You will have to remove the side gill panels below the hood, period. On the left side, you will also have to remove the battery and battery box in order to access the sensor, period. After removing the right gill panel, you will see a sensor under the AC evaporator casing, period. Both sensors are attached to the uniframe with one 13mm and one 10mm headed bolts, period. Also make sure the sensor connectors under the dash, yellow wire, are good. To be safe, tape the connectors to the dash yellow wire harness. All airbag harnesses wires are yellow, period. The average owner can do this without fear of setting off the airbag. Follow the fault code erase procedure very closely. Use a digital watch if necessary. Ungrounding the ALDL assembly line diagnostic link. Cavities A, capital A to capital K for exactly 3 seconds is very important. In most cases, the DERM is not the root cause, period. Is there anything else you want to add to that? That's basically the same thing we just covered before.
Yeah, that letter, it explains it a little bit better than the other letter. But it needs to be, don't use the dielectric grease, and clean the threads out and use a sharp-edged star washer underneath the head of the bolts. That's necessary.
This is the same problem.
Same problem. Exactly.
What other problems are there? Are there more problems in this pile?
On the airbag?
Yeah, for 1990.
If you've had an accident or you worked on the car, say you left the steering column unplugged, the airbag unplugged for some reason,
okay,
it will set a squib code. It tells you the airbag, but you can fix the problem and plug it in. If the key's on, when a connection is loose, it will set that code. Now, 1990 is a permanent code. That has to be erased, even if the problem's fixed. 91 and later, it does not have to. It'll correct itself. But there are other things that I've seen, is a loose connector on the DERM going to the dash harness.
And what would be the symptom?
Car may not start. The DERM powers up the ECM fuse.
Okay.
If you have a blown, say you have a loose connection on that wire coming from the DERM over to the fuse box, the ECM fuse, car won't start. Car won't start.
And what do you do to, and the cause of that is the loose...
Maybe a loose connection, maybe a loose pin or a broken wire or anything, but the thing of it is you will not have power coming into the ECM with the key on.
How do you...
That power comes from the DERM.
If the car's not starting, how do you troubleshoot that?
You'll set some codes in the engine. The ECM will not fire.
Okay.
You'll set some trouble codes in it. The ECM is not really, because the ECM is not powered up. One symptom would be airbag light wouldn't be on.
It would not be on.
Well, that's an airbag light fuse.
Okay, so
airbag light fuse, and then you got the ECM fuse. The airbag light fuse would knock out if it was blown, you would not have inflatable restraint lights or anything else, and therefore it would not power up the ECM. You could have good ECM fuse, airbag light.
Fuses will be another.
Airbag light, when airbag fuse is blown, it will not power up the ECM. The car won't start. But there's going to be some code set.
Okay, so
but it's got other things on when.
So you're saying that the car won't start. It could possibly be a blown fuse and also a loose connection. You said. Yeah,
it's a white connector on the right side of the dash that goes to the dash harness from the DERM. But there's a way to test.
Narrow it down.
If your airbag fuse is blown, it also affects your ABS system and affects the left dash portion of the left dash functions. If you go into 1.2 and 3, you won't be able to do some dash testing on the lights on the left side of the dash. That's, believe it or not, that's tied in with that airbag fuse.
And what would be that?
Well, that's a symptom you would get to detect if the airbag fuse is blown, but you wouldn't have an inflatable restraint light.
And you normally do.
You don't see that inflatable restraint light, and you don't see the seatbelt light. Period. First thing you look for is a blown airbag fuse.
Okay. Then the second thing would be the connection, that white
connection, but check to see if you got power on the ECM fuse.
Okay, that would be the next step.
Yeah, if you don't have power on the ECM fuse, you got to go back to the connector and say, okay, am I getting power to the DERM on the airbag fuse, and is the DERM sending out the signal to the ECM?
Okay.
How do you distinguish it from being a VATS problem because of the inflatable restraint?
Yeah, because the lights don't come on.
The what?
The lights don't come on. It's going to be the fuse, or it's going to be a loose.
Well, the bulbs are taken out, but the thing of it is, the seat belt light is controlled by the CCM through a data line. It's a different circuit than the inflatable restraint light is turned on through the DERM, but it goes into the 800 data line, the CCM, that says, okay, turn these lights on. So
that's problem. You'll get the seatbelt and the. Hey, Gordon.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a VATS problem, will you?
Got nothing to do with it.
I understand, but I'm just trying to distinguish as far as the car won't start.
Well, the car won't start. That's a different world.
Right, that's
right.
We're just talking about the airbag.
But this is airbag.
Right, but
the car won't start. You can check your CCM for VATS codes.
But if it's a VATS problem, you'll get
a VATS problem. It's set a code.
But you'll still get the seatbelt light and.
The seatbelt light still come on.
Right.
It will come on.
Nothing to do with VATS. The seatbelt light should be on with the key on as a bulb check, and it will come on. But when you start it, if there's no codes, it's the last light on the drive information panel to go out. It will go out about 3 seconds after the other lights go out. If it stays on, odds are it's going to be on when you start the key, but the light should come on a bulb check when you turn the key on.
Here's a question. This is letter 51190. On a 90 coupe, the seatbelt light won't go out.
That's it.
Yep, same one. And then his next one, will the air foil help performance?
Yeah.
That's a different question?
Yeah, that's a different question. That's the engine. That's where the one goes in front of the throttle body.
Yeah, but don't we want to get the information?
Well, now we can put it in the engine box and see. That's what I was.
Okay.
I made a copy of that.
It's the airfoil. The question on the airfoil, if it was so wonderful, GM would have put it in there.
There, Gordon. Because Jason just told me he made a photocopy of this letter and put it in the engine box.
Yeah.
We'll find it.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll find it. He made another one for the mufflers, too, I take it. Whatever.
Right. Well, there's enough airbag things in there already.
Okay, the service update on the 90 Corvette. When using the code clearing technique, it's all in there. What else is going to be the problems with 1990 airbags?
You could have a short out wire.
A uniframe impact sensor. Are there any problems with the sensors?
Not once in a while. I have seen a sensor, but it would be unlikely.
Okay, inflator module.
Can't buy them. They don't make them. A person who's got that and got a bad DERM, what they do, they just take the bulbs out and don't have an airbag.
You take the bulbs out.
His car still started.
Well, that's what I should put in there, too, is check to see if the bulbs have been removed, or, I mean, I don't know how it...
Well, if you don't see the lights, yeah. Yeah, people take the bulbs out. Odds are they will not take the cluster seatbelt light out. you have to remove your cluster from the dash. You have to take the whole back plate off of the cluster to take that bulb out of the socket. Average person not going to know how to do this.
Okay. Why would somebody want to do that?
How they sell a car. They can't get rid of the code. The light's on.
Uh-huh.
They don't see the light. Nobody notices it. They sell it. When the guy gets tired of looking at it.
Well, I mean, and that'd be easy to check to see, right? If they have the light bulbs, that's easy to check?
Well, if you take the driver information panel out, it's got a PC74 bulb in there, and it's just, you just take a bulb out of another socket and put it in there and turn the key on. You'll find out real fast the light comes on. But most of the time, they just take the whole socket out because the bulb is soldered into the socket. They just can't take the bulb out. They got to take the socket out.
Okay, so, I mean, is it not a bad idea to actually put something in there? I mean, is it common that...
Yes, it's very common. People take the bulbs out.
Okay, so is it possible that we want to try to put something like in the lines of a line, just for people to... How would I put this? Let's say they bought the Corvette and how do they know their airbags are good?
They don't.
They don't know. So should we do something like I can take all this and
all you got to do
verifying that your airbags are good. How do you do that?
When you turn your key on and your inflatable restraint light bulb comes on, and all your days they'll do a bulb check on your driver information panel.
Doing the bulb check is
go out. The inflatable restraint light goes out. You have to take it for granted that your airbag's going to work. If it stays on, you got to find out what code it is.
But let's say
it doesn't have an impact sensor. Say it has a squib code. Or sometimes it'll set a loose bulb code.
Right.
It actually there's a code in there for a loose or shorted bulb.
Well, if the bulbs have not been loose or removed, the sockets weren't removed, then
they'll get a code 41 or 2.
Right, I got the code here, and I just was wondering about... Let's say that, people actually just remove the socket and the bulb so people will never know whether or not there's a problem.
That's right. That's what they do.
Well, that's what I'm focusing on right now.
Check the codes.
Check the codes?
Yeah, find out if there's a shorted or loose bulb code.
Okay. Check the codes for airbag. That would be how to determine whether or not...
As the seatbelt light will be on.
It will be on?
Yeah. Say you had a burnout bulb.
Uh-huh.
Burnout bulb.
Thank you. It's not the bulb.
And the seatbelt light's not on.
Right.
It's probably a burnout bulb.
Okay, but what if the bulb was removed? And there's no...
The light would be on.
And the seatbelt light will be on?
Yes.
Okay. So if somebody removed the socket, the seatbelt light will be on?
Yeah, there's a code set.
There's a code set.
Later on, the airbag system, take the bulb out, the car won't start.
Really? Was that done on purpose?
Yes.
To stop people from doing that?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's a little trivia.
If the bulb is burned out, will the car still start?
It will on 90.
It will on 90.
But 91 and up, it will not start either.
No.
The bulb is burned out.
Yeah, no, the bulb, yeah. If the bulb would, the bulb would burn out. I think I wouldn't start. Inflatable, but you would have probably a code set on that, and seatbelt light would be on for an open circuit.
But they don't have a lot of problems with those?
No, I mean...
I won't start if they actually...
get one burn out, but it's unlikely.
They took the socket out.
If it's
what they do, they have to take the socket out because the bulb's soldered in the socket.
Yeah. All right.
So if it's removed, it won't start, but if it's burned out, it will start.
If the 90's burned out, the seatbelt light would be on. It shows an open circuit. But you would have no inflatable restraint light.
Here's something, code 26, that with the right side crash sensor, on a 1990?
Same thing.
Same thing. Okay. The airbags don't seem like it's going to be a huge, huge section, huh?
Yeah, you get a lot of calls.
You do, but it's the same stuff.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
All right. Well, I mean, it's the same problems. It looks like. I mean, I could.
Very similar problems. I've seen wires rubbing the steering column or something, or back coil, but it's going to set the code and tell you what it is. It may not be an impact sensor code, but most commonly it's going to be an impact sensor code or a steering column problem.
Okay. So how do you you get the code. It tells you the cause of the problem. Now, what do we do to fix it?
It's according to what the code is.
Well, you told me what the codes for the DERM and the info and the seatbelt lights. Is there anything else?
Oh, there's a lot of codes.
No, I meant for airbag.
There's a lot of codes in airbags.
Mm-hmm.
Where's your ALDL book?
You got 41, 42, 33, 4, 5, 6. You got a lot of different codes. You wait until you get into 91, you got 60 codes probably.
Yeah, but are we going to do presentations on all?
I wouldn't even waste my time on the 91 airbags.
Right, because you said they don't go. You don't have.
You could refer them to the manual or something, but that's a very long, complicated section on airbags on 91 and later.
Yeah, but we're not going to have a lot of troubleshooting.
You won't have no troubleshooting on it. It does a self-test. You could explain that about doing a self-test and the problems there.
Well, all that information's here.
It's just, on a 91 later, if you have you check your codes. But see, you get into airbags, it's in the CCM later on. A 90, let's see, 3. It's A, airbag.
Right, but all that information's here, but we're not going to do a lot of troubleshooting on that, is what you're saying.
No, not on the 91 later, I don't think.
Well, most
one or two problems with it, and that's it.
With the 1990, 1 or 2 problems?
No, 91 or later.
91 or later, okay.
I've had hundreds of problems on the 90.
I know, but I'm trying to get those out of you right now, and I don't get...
That was the problems. I've explained them.
These are the problems right here.
A problem on an impact sensor or a DERM itself. I have seen a bad DERM, but most cases, no.
Right.
If the codes won't clear, then that's a bad DERM, is what he said earlier.
No.
Yeah.
If the codes won't clear, it's a bad connection.
If you can't clear it and you've got new impact sensors and everything is good, and you do have a bad DERM, I don't know where you're going to get one. I don't know of anybody that makes one or redoes them. In a case like that, you can bypass the system, but I don't want to tell anybody how to bypass an airbag system.
Oh, in here. Root causes of failure discovered in the plant. Loose connections at impact sensor connectors. Squib. Spread from female terminals on DERM.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, loose pins.
Loose pins.
Feeding the ECM fuse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a bunch of them in the plant. Didn't get out.
Okay. The seatbelt light will also come on. I got it all here. It's all the same. These are the same root causes. There's not that many.
No, not really.
You'll get a lot of... here's some 1990... No, did you make a copy of this shit? Okay. That's not your bag. All right. Is there anything else, Gordon, that you could think of in regards to the airbags for 1990 problems? Because there's, not much here.
Just simple thing. Do no wire repair on them. If you do, you got to use a GM-authorized Packard wiring procedure.
That should be put in the caution.
Well, because what you do, you can't see undue resistance on any of these wires. You can't have the battery hooked up, but even if you do solder wire or you use a butt connector in solder or how you tape it. It can't have any added resistance to it. And GM came out with a Packard repair kit with white wires with tags on them. Said this has been repaired. And if it was yellow harness, rather. The thing about the derm changing, this is something else you could put in there about the derm. If you have to change a derm, do not attempt to remove the harness wire out of the dash.
Okay.
The derm, the harness wire comes as a one piece out of the derm, goes to the steering column, it goes to the connector hooked into the dash, and it goes to both leads, come out the impact sensors. One piece. There are no connections like 91 later. What you do, you cut the wire off at the derm and leave the harness wire. It is taped into the harness wire. You would have to disassemble the whole dash to get that wire out.
If you have to replace the derm.
If you had to replace the derm. What you got to do is route it up over the top of the steering column and use tie bands and tie it so it doesn't rub anything. And the same way on the right side, route it over through the dash to the right side for the impact sensor. Let's see, in 91, the derm was right there and it took up to 3 deployments. But in 94, they went to dual airbags. The derm was moved out of the center dash to replace the procedure of how to replace a derm in a CCM would be the same. But that was one procedure that would be a long procedure, but it can, anybody can do it. But it comes in from the left side. It just changes CCM or a derm. You have to remove the side panel, your knee bolster, and all that. It takes the ace bracket off. The left side goes into the dash, just like you're changing the body module. But the other derm is up underneath the right dash in 94, which is you got to remove the right lower panel and go up in there to get it.
Yeah, but people aren't going to be replacing derms, right?
Well, no. They might after 3 accidents, I would say. It takes up to 3 deployments. So odds are they would not be replacing that derm. If you had 3 accidents and that car still survived, and I doubt if you would replace the derm.
I'm looking at the supplemental inflatable restraint, the STG with Service Technology Group, this book that you gave.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at the different codes.
Yeah. Well, what's this on, a 90?
I guess, I don't know.
Say Siemens system?
Yeah.
That's 90.
The code 26 front sensor fault code.
Yeah.
I mean, are they going to be having to replace sensors? Are they going to have to be...
Sometimes you might. If you have an accident, you have to replace sensors.
How do you do that?
Same way procedure. What we just said about cleaning the frame off.
Is it all in here, Jim? Do I got it all?
They're 2 different procedures. Well, I mean, it's...
You got to route the wire connector under the dash. You got to remove the lower dash panel, disconnect it, and route the wire and grommet and everything.
Right.
It's the same procedure as when he said to clean the connector.
So all the codes, all these different codes.
Take it out instead of clean it.
Yeah, all these codes are going to have the same procedures.
Well, the steering column is different.
Okay.
The steering column, it may require, a lot more work to disassemble the column. The average person is not going to be able to do this.
What are they doing, though?
Because you got a dual snap ring system with a coil and the wire running down through the steering column, and you got to take that column way down, break it way down, the steering wheel, directional mechanism.
Get to what?
Everything to replace that wire or get in there. Even with a lock cylinder, cruise control, or anything.
Why would they have to do that?
If you had a wire rubbed in the column on the airbag and it said a squib code.
What is a squib code?
It's just open or short in the steering column going up to the airbag.
That's a squib code, okay.
What codes are going to bring up?
that has happened, but it's not common. But you can have a VATS code set by that. You can have directionals. You can have horn, honk, short.
Wire in the steering column, you mean?
Yeah, in the column.
Mhm. That's a whole other world, the steering column.
Yeah, average person not going to be able to tear that column apart. When you get into that, I would just refer them to the service manual because it's too lengthy. You just couldn't do it.
Okay. All right. Well, is there anything else that we should be talking about in regards to these?
No.
1990? Okay. Please tell us if there is. That was an easy one. Jason just brought me a stack of letters. I don't know what box it is. It's AC, air conditioning. No, AC heat.
What years?
Well, this one here is a 1982 letter.
I got them all separated. All the way the letters go all the way.
I'm going to go 82
to
96 on the AC.
Well.
Or do you want to do 89?
Well, I wouldn't go from 82 because they're different. 84.
Well, there's one letter in here on an 82. I could skip.
Yeah, but
I'll just skip it for now.
It's not the same system and wiring and everything.
I do 84 through 89 or 84 through 96?
84 through 89. Has to be different.
Okay.
Something I've done, too, I went through, I've got letters written down here on all this fault tree, what we're talking about on the AC and all that. I went in the last day or two, and I went through all of 1984 through 89 relays.
I know.
With the part number and how to access them.
Chris says you're going to make a recording for me.
Each relay. And I wrote the letter, and then I'm going to make a recording of the letter.
Right, and you'll do that for the modules, too, and how to access?
Yeah, but it's just, I'm going to do all the relays. I've got my relay list, and I'm going down through all the relay part numbers.
And we could do the PowerPoint presentations on them.
And it's how to access this relay. And
step-by-step procedure.
Huh?
Step-by-step procedure.
Step-by-step procedure.
Okay, this here letter says, I have an 84 with 107,000 miles. This is letter number NET 02384. An 84 Corvette. Whenever I turn on my air conditioner, I notice my performance decrease a great deal. My voltage will read 11.4 or sometimes below, and my cooling temp gauge also begins to rise to 255 or higher. All of this only occurs when I turn on the AC. While driving, it will sometimes stop on me. I would have to turn my AC off and let my volts build back up and temp decrease. I have taken it to 3 mechanics. No one can find the problem. We've got multiple symptoms. Let's go through the symptoms real quick. We have AC's turned on, performance decreases. Cooling temp begins to rise to 255 or higher while AC is running. While driving, sometimes stop on me. Have to turn my AC off and let volts build back up and temp decrease. Then your letter says,
fan is not coming on.
I didn't hear you. What did you say?
Cooling fan is not coming on.
Cooling fan's not coming on? On all that stuff right there?
Yeah. What the symptom is, your engine starts to rise temperature, cooling fan doesn't come on. And what happens is that when you turn on your air conditioner, your cooling fan is supposed to come on to reduce the head pressure off of the condenser for your AC to cool. When you turn your air conditioner on, if the fan does not come on, you start building up high pressure. It starts loading up the compressor. It drags your motor down. When it gets to 420 psi, it goes on a kick-out pressure switch, overload kick-out pressure switch, and your compressor will cycle in and out. But meanwhile, it will pull your motor down, and you will have very poor performance. Your engine temperature will rise. When he turns his AC off, the compressor's not working. You have a 95 amp alternator in that system, and if you load that system up, your red light will come on 11.7 volts. And they had a problem with that, particularly with turning rear defogger on at the same time, headlights is on or whatever you're loading up. But when the compressor starts loading up, it draws your engine down to lower RPM. The alternator is not putting out enough voltage. And it all comes to, did your coolant fan come on with your AC? And that is 84 is sensor controlled off of the sensor on the compressor with the brown wire.
You could see this, right? You could see it. You could see with your plain eyes if the coolant fan is coming on.
Right, you can see it. Odds are the coolant fan is not coming on.
Okay.
And that'll create everything you said. And what it does, it loads up the compressor. It starts pulling your motor down.
So these symptoms, okay, so that's the first thing that we should check is the coolant fan coming on.
Yeah.
Okay, and so if the answer is no, then what do you do?
Well, you got a whole fault tree on coolant fan operation that we went through before. On the sensor, the brown wire,
I got it.
relay on the left skirt.
Got to link it, okay. I'm going to read real quick this letter, the reply that you gave, just to see because make sure that it's all here. The idle on your 84 is controlled by an IAC, idle air control, solenoid in each throttle body. The ECM moves a stepper spindle in or out as needed to regulate the air entering the intake through the venturi of each throttle body.
Ventura. Opening.
Period.
Now, is he talking the thing about
Go to sleep.
driving down the road?
This is your reply to the symptoms that I told you. So I'm just going to finish reading this reply, and then you can go into it further because I'm going to document this in the dictation box. I'm almost done. I'll be fast. When the AC is turned on, a 12-volt signal goes to the ECM, open paren, electronic control module, close paren, period. The ECM moves the spindle shaft in order to counteract for the AC compressor load on the engine, period. If the idle goes down, the voltage can also drop, period. The 3C, open paren, computer command control, close paren, temperature sensor on the 84s and early 85s sometimes sent an abnormal cool engine signal to the temperature sensor. Hold on.
From the sensor.
Signal to the ECM, period. ECM leans the fuel out, trying to maintain a 14.7 to numeral 1 air-fuel ratio, period. This causes the engine temperature to go up somewhat. The engine fan comes on at about 228 degrees Fahrenheit. 228 degrees Fahrenheit from the sensor in the right rear head between the 6 and 8 spark plugs. The fan is sensor controlled, not ECM controlled, period. The 84s did not have front booster fan B4P option, period. See VetToVet.com for 84 booster fan kit with the brackets for the 85 capital Y bracket and booster fan relay and wiring, period. The sensor can be changed to one that turns the fan on at 200 degrees Fahrenheit and off at 185 degrees Fahrenheit. If you have a manual transmission, the overdrive won't work if the engine temperature is below 176 degrees Fahrenheit, period. So 160 degrees Fahrenheit thermostat cannot be used, period. Check for #1, period, capital A, AC, ON, signal to the ECM. New line. #2, period. Correct voltage from the 3C coolant sensor, period. New line. #3, period. 0.54 to 0.56 volts at idle on the throttle position sensor. Open paren, TPS, close paren. New line. #4, period. Synchronized throttle bodies, period. Select oddities. Spell that. CODIES. Okay.
Throttle bodies.
Go to sleep. All right. So those symptoms that's the reply for.
Well, that's one avenue you can go, but the other avenue is the coolant fans not coming on. Do when the AC is on.
And I got the fault tree for that.
Now, yeah, you got all of that. If the AC, when you drive down the road and you got airflow across the condenser, it may it will cool some and reduce the temperature and may take less drag off of the compressor, but it will still load up on you to a degree. But you will notice more idle effect is just sitting there from the other conditions than the fan. Your engine temperature would not, with the AC, say sitting there with the AC on, the engine temperature will come on at 228 degrees if it's related to the AC, instead of turn on immediately when the AC is on. So if it turns on, fan comes on 228 degrees, you know the sensor on the AC is not working correctly. That it's not, the brown wire is tied in from the sensor on the AC to the one on the engine. Either one of them goes to ground, turns the fan on. Early cars, the first 1200, we had to put an alternate pressure switch on the high side liquid line and clip that brown wire off of the compressor because of the sensor was out of calibration and would make it get, that would turn on the, make it a condition like he's talking about, but not severe. But what would happen, the fan was delayed coming on with the air conditioner on and started building up high pressure on the AC system, and it caused the idle to go low. The idle went low, the voltage output was less, and the red light would come on the dash. when it got to 11.7.
What do you do to fix it?
We put an alternate sensor on those cases like that because it had a bad sensor in the compressor.
How do you do that?
Oh, you got to discharge the AC and you got to snap ring and holds it to change it. But you look at your pressure on your liquid line. It should be around 220 psi on the low side.
Is there a how-to presentation?
Well, I don't know any charging AC system's a how-to presentation.
Go into it.
Well, you got to have a set of gauges to start out with.
Okay.
Okay, and then you get into, you're telling somebody about an AC recovery system, if you take Freon in or out, because if you don't, EPA will get you.
So do you think
you're better off to stay away from, you can tell them what to do, but, and what you should have. But
I would recommend they have a professional. Because
of the Freon, they no longer got they no longer got R12, the 84 had, they got 134A. But I would probably recommend stuff like Freeze 12 or something alternate where you don't have to change over to 134A. But then you got to have a recovery system that will collect that Freon, and that's what the problem with the EPA runs into. Most shops will not have this. They'll have a 134A and an R12 recovery system, but not something else.
And what years does that apply to?
Well, we didn't go to 134A until 94, I think it was.
So should we do the how-to presentation on the recharging the AC?
Well, you can.
Well, because shops might use it.
Well, yeah, but they should know how to recharge an AC system.
Okay.
It's a standard thing. You get into 90, it's a different world. Now, there's problems they're going to have charging the system due to code 9 being set. Because they kick the compressor out and you have to take the battery cable off, and they don't know this, they can't charge the system. But the other one is just basic AC charging with a cycling orifice tube system, not a POA valve system. So it's no different charging them than it would be on all years or other cars.
Okay. So
that's just like telling somebody how to change a flat tire. Hello, take the wheel.
Got it. So on these symptoms here that he went into in this, the fan's the first one. I got the fault tree for that. I can link that in there. And then I could link this other thing. You said that's one way about going about it. So
yeah, it's a difference if it's an idle or condition. 84 was more of a 10 to do this than 85, because 85 we went to 120 amp alternator.
That's what it says.
So that's a difference. They were aware of the problem, a voltage sensitive problem on 84. Anything related to what would cause the RPM to drop. But the biggest symptom is loading the compressor up and pulling the engine down. Is the fan, you got the question. So what if the fan was on? Then you go more to the avenue of coolant temperature, IAC, fuel ratios, and TPS switch and stuff like that. If maybe the fan's on, maybe the fan's running.
The fan's on, the fan's running. And what is the symptom?
We go to that one letter about, the symptom will be the same.
Okay, about...
yeah, but it more affects it at idle than driving and performance.
Driving and performance, decrease.
Driving and performance, you would have to drive at a steady rate for the IAC to lean out and do all of this.
This has nothing to do with the air conditioner, right?
Well, when you turn the air conditioner on and all you're doing is just putting extra load on the engine, and the ECM has to know that your air conditioner's on.
Oh.
If it doesn't know the air conditioner on, it's not going to change it won't maintain idle correctly if it doesn't know that your air conditioner's on. Because I've had people put motors in other cars and they can't get it to idle right because if they turn the air conditioner on, the idle drop's too low. Well, the ECM's got to know the air conditioner's on.
Okay, so for the performance decreasing symptom, are there any other causes?
Clogged up debris between AC condenser and the radiator.
All right, I got that one.
You've got a fault tree on that.
What about?
That would really be one, but that's going to be there all the time.
No. Okay. Oh, I already got that one. Okay. The car will sometimes stop on them while they're driving. Any other causes?
Well, if it gets too hot and a low voltage output, biggest thing.
Right.
You just low voltage and you don't have enough voltage for the ignition.
And is there anything else that's causing low voltage?
It can be a negative battery not connected good. It could be a braided strap from the engine to the uniframe not being good. You go into your voltage, how to check for voltage output, and you look at your voltage output on your cluster to see what your voltage output is.
I got a presentation on that, don't I?
You should have.
All right, but let's say...
It's in the cluster book.
Yep, I got that, but I'm saying these symptoms, if there's any other causes, so then an attempt to decrease, okay, then you would...
Dirty air cleaner, simple as that.
Uh-huh.
But that's going to be there all the time, and it may be noticeable at idle too, but when you require more air to come in, you don't get the air coming in.
So for these symptoms, we've covered all the causes, possible causes.
Most cases, yeah.
And that's 84 to 89? Mostly, though, 84, you said, and 85.
Yeah, because of a low amp alternator output. It's only a 95 amp alternator.
Well, the causes, okay, could be the fan's not running.
Yeah, the fan not running.
Okay, and I got all the filter, and I got the debris. You know, I got all that. But what else? I mean, sensors, temperature.
Well, the 84 had a round pin sensor, 3C coolant temperature sensor.
Is that for the AC?
And no, this is what controls the fuel going into the engine. We had problems with that sensor.
Right, but I'm talking about the just the air conditioning part. I just want to make sure that there's no other how-to procedures that we need to change because I've got on the cooling fan I have.
Yeah, that's all it is. Just you got the AC. You could check your pressure on your if you had a set of gauges on your AC and watch your pressure on your liquid line on your high pressure kick-out switch.
How do you do that?
You would have to take your high pressure kick-out switch off and jumper across it. Put your gauge on there and run your car and see if that high pressure goes up. That means that the condenser is not being cooled. That means you got debris between the AC condenser and the radiator, and the fan's not coming on. Maybe the fan's turned too slow.
Right.
But you could actually take the Schrader valve off. You could jumper wire across the connector so it thinks that everything's okay and it'll run. You put your Schrader valve gauge on that fitting. Drive your car and watch that pressure. While you're driving, you could put it up on the hood where you could see it or something. And you see that pressure going up, the high side is too high, and too high side pressure can come from a blocked orifice tube, for one thing.
Okay, now what would be the symptom for a blocked orifice tube?
A high side pressure.
A high side pressure. What would be the symptom for that it would make you check for this high side pressure?
The temperature, load your engine up and everything.
Uh-huh. So all that...
The orifice tube is a filter.
Okay.
And if the filter gets blocked, it builds up high side pressure, but you'll have a real low side pressure if you got a blocked orifice tube. If you put a set of gauges and put it on the high side and low side, your high side will be real high, but your low side will be real low.
And these would be the same symptoms like the engine getting too hot or...
Yeah, it will. If the fan's not not coming on.
Right.
Or you got debris.
If your fan is coming on, you mean?
Debris between the condenser and the condenser is not being cooled, the fan may be on. But it's still not reducing the head pressure on the AC, and the AC compressor starts loading up. It drops your RPMs. Your performance is affected. Your engine heat. So the fan is on, but the condenser's not being cooled because you may have debris between the condenser and the radiator. A plugged up. Or a blocked radiator, which you're going to have a temperature problem all the time that way if you got a blocked radiator problem. Right, but this is a temperature problem. This is not to do with the air conditioner. But the air conditioner on the head pressure is the biggest thing, is that if it doesn't cool the condenser, it starts building high side pressure. It builds that high side pressure due to the coolant has not went into a liquid state. It's a vapor. Okay. So I would say your Freon I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of how I'm wording the title in the fault tree in regard to where do I place that at what point. Yeah, it would be probably AC, something to do with AC function. Mm-hmm. I had not covered this. Fan is running. AC operation. You might put a AC system operation like Freon flow system. Make people understand how AC works. Okay. What the normal line pressures would be. I see. Like they do if the line goes from the pump or too low. It goes from the pump through the condenser, through a liquid line into the evaporator, comes out of the evaporator on a larger line. It goes through an orifice tube going into the evaporator, comes out of the evaporator on a liquid line, which is called a suction line. There are low pressure cycling switches on this because this is a low side pressure because it's on the opposite side of the orifice tube, which is about the size of a lead. The orifice tube could possibly be plugged. It could be clogged. Normally, the orifice tube will be clogged if you've had a compressor problem and changed the compressor, but you didn't check that orifice tube, and you may have particles of metal or rubber and hoses or something blocking it. But the symptom of it is it will give you a real high side pressure and load your compressor up. Load the compressor. And AC won't cool very well at all, and you'll have a real low side pressure. Okay. Less than, you may only have 10 pounds pressure. You won't have between 25 and 45 psi pressure on it. So it's not cooling very well would be. No, it won't cool very well either. Mm-hmm. Would that be the first thing they check when it's not cooling well? Well, you check fluid, you check with a gauge to see how much Freon you got. And then you check, is your compressor... How do you do that? Put a gauge on a low side line. And you put a high side line. I don't usually use a high side line until I get into a questionable high side pressure being too high, because normally if your low side's right, usually your high side's going to be right. But if it's not right, it's going to be out of range a lot. If your high side's off. And what are you changing? You actually change the orifice tube. You discharge the Freon. You take the fittings loose on the curved line that goes in the evaporator, and you pull the orifice tube out and put a new orifice tube in it. Okay. It's a filter. It will stop up. Okay. And what happens is Freon comes to this in a liquid state, and there's a little brass stem inside this tube with a screen on it. And then when the Freon is a gas that rapidly changes from liquid to a gas as a temperature change, very sensitive temperature change. And once it expands through that orifice tube, it goes out into a gaseous state, and then it goes into all the evaporator core, and it picks up the coolness off of the evaporator core. Once this is coolness is taken out, then it's sucked through the low side line with a cycling switch back into the bottle through the oil filter system in the bottle, back into the compressor. It's then compressed back into a liquid form, pushing it through the condenser back in, and it just comes a complete loop all the time.
Okay. And if that orifice tube is clogged?
And you would have a high side pressure, a low side pressure. It would cool very well. It might load up your compressor and make your compressor kick out on a high pressure PSI at 420 PSI.
All right.
And it would lower your RPM, your alternator that would put out as much.
Just from that clog?
Just from that clog. If you're AC. But turn your AC off, everything will be okay.
Okay. So first thing to check is the level of the Freon.
Freon, check your readings on your pressures on your Freon.
Pressures, and then it may have a high side or a low side, and that next thing.
Well, too high. A high side indicates that the condenser is not being cooled.
Right. Okay. The high side indicates it. Okay. So then you're going to check that plug.
Well, what you got to do, you got a high side line fitting. You got a high side pressure kick out switch. You can hook it to a high side line, a liquid line fitting with your gauges if you got the adapter for it, and check your high side pressure.
And so
your low side's on your bottle, but your high side's well, you got one on the compressor, but you got a liquid line too, though.
Let's say they find out that it has a high side, right? It goes to the compressor is what did you call it? Overheating or something?
Well, loading up.
Loading up. Okay, so that's happening.
And what this is a safety device they got to prevent the compressor from burning up.
Okay.
And if it loads up, it may bust your fan belt. It'll lock it up. I have seen it. You gotta watch it because I've seen it smoke the belt before it gets to 420 psi.
What's smoking the belt? The compressor?
Compressor.
If it's loading up.
When it's loading up, it ain't turning very fast, and
it's
loading
up
down, and that belt may burn.
And that would be because of a orifice clog or something.
Clogged orifice or debris. And the coolant fan not coming on.
Got it.
And what it'll generally do with the coolant fan not coming on, it'll cycle rapidly. It will start up okay, and when you're going down the highway, it will work, but it won't cool real good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in idle, it sit there and cycle out and go choo-choo-choo-choo-choo. And what it's doing is hitting the high-pressure limits on the kick-out switch at 420 psi, disengaging the compressor to keep it from blowing out the expansion tube on the compressor. The expansion tube blows out higher pressure than the kick-out switch does. If you didn't have the kick-out switch, it would blow the Freon out of the back of the compressor on a safety expansion valve to keep from blowing the compressor up.
All right, so that fan's going to blow up before the compressor will. I mean, the belt will.
I've seen it happen. It's according to the condition of the belt.
Mm-hmm.
It will load up if it loads up that compressor and 420 psi, it may, if you don't have a real good belt, it may bust your belt.
Right. So how do you, would there be any other reason why that belt would go out? If
it just got cracks in it.
Okay, how do you replace that belt?
Well, there's a procedure. You just take a half-inch drive wrench and an idler, belt idler. And
Gordon, you have to repeat that little clearer and slower.
You take a half-inch ratchet.
Okay.
And you go to the belt idler and push the belt idler, take the belt off and replace it. The routing instructions for how to put the belt on, if you don't know what it is on a tag. It's an emission sticker up on top of your fan shroud. Shows your belt routing, emission hoses and belt routing.
Okay.
So you'll know if you take it off, say, hey, how'd that go back on? But it's an idler. It's serpentine belt idler that you got to push in. later on they get a little more harder to get in there, and you gotta.
But this is 84 to 89.
Yeah, it's easier to really do them, and you get into the later ones, you gotta have a curved one.
So that's going to be a how-to presentation, right?
Yeah, you need to. Yeah, you need a how-to and how to change the belt, because that's going to be a common thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, anytime you change an alternator, put a new belt on it.
Put a new belt on it.
Yeah.
Well, we're changing the compressor belt, right?
No, that is all one belt.
Okay, and you went ahead and told me how to do that, right?
I just did.
Okay, just making sure. Making sure we're done. On the air conditioning system also, you know, we went through some of those symptoms. We went through some of the fault trees on the cooling. I got a lot of that. What about a solenoid? Is that a sensor?
What solenoid?
I don't know. The IAC?
The IAC is idle control solenoid. It maintains your idle.
Now, is that something that can go out or go bad?
They generally don't go bad, but generally what happens is they get dirty tips on them.
Okay.
Sometimes, and
symptoms for that. I mean, what would cause?
The symptom is you may have low idle, high idle.
Mm-hmm.
May not control the idle right.
Okay, the idle air control.
Surging?
It is stick and tip. You may one time your engine idle real low, next time idle real high, and you got to look at your TPS. Your throttle plate wouldn't even be moving, and it would change your idle.
So how do you clean that solenoid?
Well, you can take it out and clean it, and you can take carburetor cleaner. Like, it's easier on a 84 where you don't have mass airflow sensor. You have to have it hooked up to run it. So you got to take the mass airflow sensor off on 85 through 89, and then spray carburetor cleaner in there. And I spray it right into the ventura of the hole for the IAC bypass air, and then I don't spray a lot at a time because you don't want a lot getting on the oxygen sensors. And then put everything back on, start your engine, and then hold your oxygen sensor, hold your RPM about 2,000 RPMs if the engine's warm for about 2 minutes. It burns the oxygen sensor. Any residues off the oxygen sensor or carbon would maintain the idle. Carboned up O2 sensor can make your fluctuation act like a bad IAC.
And the IAC has nothing to do with the air conditioning. It's just something...
No, but it reacts to the air conditioning through the ECM.
Uh-huh. And this is 84 only?
No, all of them.
Oh.
All the way up.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's just a different one on them. That's all.
All right, let me look at some other letters here real quick, see if there's something else in here. Jason, what is it just because of the year? I got it. 84 year.
That's
okay.
84. This one will be 85.
I got it. 84, okay.
Jason, you got any questions? Am I confusing you?
He's still in recovery.
I'm completely confused.
Thank you. Doing a good job, then, huh?
I'm confused how one man can have so much information off the cuff of his brain.
Hey, Jay.
I don't understand it either, so.
Okay, so here's the next letter. Check to see. Hold on, let me see what the symptom is. Okay, I'm going to dictate again into this box, Gordon. When I put the heat selector over about 1 inch for heat, I get a lot of heat. And if I move it over to the right all the way to the end, there is no difference in the amount of heat. In other words, I can't adjust the heat. It always seems to give complete heat, and I can't adjust it down or just to a little. Any ideas? This is letter NET 11884.
What year?
1984, and
okay.
Your reply is, Check to see if the air mix door rod is out of the clip on the cable to the heater housing bracket, period. Cable can come off also, period. If you need adjustment, there is an adjustment collar in the middle of the cable below the heater casing, just above the lower plastic panel's forward edge, period. Just turn the cable to shorten or lengthen the cable, period. Go to sleep. Gordon, don't do that. You're being recorded. I was already telling Jay I'm going to take all your sound effects whenever you make a sound effect of a symptom on a car, and I'm going to take them all out, and I'm going to compile a CD. For the
Ding dong.
Yeah, it's for the Killebrew Foundation.
Yeah, shish boom ball. You know what that is, don't you?
Yeah, but you just did one. You went. It goes da 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 da.
You know what shish boom ball is, don't you?
No.
That's when a moth is blowing up a sheep.
Gosh.
Shish boom ball.
Oh. Okay, so do you remember this letter here? This was 84 again.
Yeah.
What's the symptom? It's okay.
The symptom is you can't adjust the temperature. You got a slide lever.
That would be this one.
And you can't adjust the temperature.
Wait, Gordon, this is 84 to 89, right? This applies?
A manual AC.
Oh, okay.
Well, it could be electronic, but that's a different thing on the electronic motor. This is a manual slide.
Well, let's do both of them if they apply to 84 to 89. We'll do the manual first.
All the way up.
And then we'll do the electronic.
90. And then it's similar to 90 also.
Okay, so...
But anyhow, what it is...
But this is 84 to 89 manual.
84 to 89. You got a threaded rod that comes off the door to the heater cable. And it's got a plastic V-clip snapped into it, and it's just a threaded a rod with rings on it. And to set this, you turn your lever, move your lever to the heat position, you remove the lower dash panel, and you unclip the rod and pull the rod back till the door's shut into the heat position and clip the rod back. Then when you move the lever, you should hear a thump on each side back and forth. That means if you hit the stops on each side and you're doing a full travel of the door. If you do not hear a thump, the odds are that cable is way out of adjustment or slip. Now, sometimes it'll jump the threads and it'll slip, particularly if somebody moved it real fast. And you just got, and you can finesse it with the collar so you can adjust it one way or the other so you don't have a big gap on either side, like you got a quarter-inch gap on one end, you don't have a gap on the other one when the slide lever's over one way or the other. But there's a kind of a simpler way to look at it, too, is you go open the hood and take on top of the evaporator casing, there's a plug with a yellow, blue, tan, and purple wire in it. The yellow's low speed, blue, tan's intermediate, blue's high, blue out, and you unplug it. Unplug the connector.
Did you say yellow?
Yellow.
Okay, just kidding.
That's Southern for yellow.
Got it. I just want to make sure I have the right color.
Yeah. But anyhow, these wires, it changes your fan speeds. What it does, this controls your fan speeds.
Yellow wire.
Resistance. Well, yellow's low speed.
Okay.
That's just resistance wire. What you do, you unplug it. And then you got two 7mm screws that hold it in heater casing. You move it out. You can later on you do a power presentation on this because this will work all the way up through 96.
Okay, so
manual ACs.
We are going to do the power presentation.
ACs has got a blower module you take out. But you can shine a light down in that opening and actually look at the door, physically see the door. The door in the heat position should be all the way shut. If it's all the way shut, then turn it to cold, and it should be all the way shut the other way. You know the door is adjusted properly. If it's out of adjustment, there will be a gap on one side. This is where it affects your heat. But it's nothing uncommon. I have actually seen the rod come off of the door inside the heater casing. But I've seen people do it. Now, if it is unclipped or it has slipped, I would suggest using a 1989 clip. It had a lock tab on top of it. Once you set it, it would never come out of that clip.
Okay.
Because they gave me $1,000 for that suggestion at work, because we were having all the way from 84 to 88 doing that. And they coming off electronic and manual AC. And I said, put one with a clip, and they did it, and they gave me this money.
But Gordon, you can't find those clips anymore.
Yes, you can. I bought them at a dealership, and I had last year. I don't know whether they got them now or not.
Oh, we'll make sure we have them available through VetToVet.com. Do you know the part?
I got the part number somewhere down. It's in the parts book.
Okay, I'll find it.
But it's under an 89.
Under 89. What's it called?
Available until 89.
What's it called?
It's called a temperature valve rod clip.
Okay.
And that's what they call a temperature valve rod clip.
Okay, got it.
And it's in a special thing, and even if you look in the, say, a 93 parts book, it's separate from the regular AC controls and stuff. It's kind of on a page by itself showing it, the motor and stuff and the rods. But on a electronic air, it's clipped into the arm off of the motor.
So, Gordon, Jay had brought up a point, 84 through 88. We're going to have this be the first fault tree probably to check for this.
Yeah, it would be probably the simplest thing. It's corn if it feels real free.
If it feels real free.
If it feels real free. First thing, open the hood. Go out. Take that the temperature rheostat out. Shine a light down in there.
Right.
See where the door's at. Get you a long rod and reach down there and see if you can move the door. If you can move that door, the rod's off.
Okay.
The door should not be able to be moved.
How do you fix the rod?
You remove the lower dash panel. The rod is clipped into the little white nylon V-clip in the cable bracket. The cable end comes out. Arm. You unsnap it, and if it's unsnapped, you slide the lever to the heat position. You pull the door rearward with the rod until the door's shut in the heat position. Clip the rod back down in the cable clip, and then slide the slide back and forth, and the door will move. And then to finesse it to where you don't have a gap on each side, and when you hear it, you go this way, it should thump. You go back the other way, it should thump. You should hear it. Or you can physically go out and look down in there with a light. In the heat position, it will be all the way seated, and the cold position, it will be all the way seated, and it's adjusted right. But your control head will show that, too, that it won't have a gap on one side and tight on the other. Should be equal on each side. This is not an uncommon thing. You see it more on electronic air than you do with manual, but if you hit that manual lever real quick, it'll jump teeth sometimes.
Now, what if the cable came off? Is it the same procedure?
The cable won't. If the cable comes off in the control head, the arm will be real free.
Real free.
Okay. But when you get a hold of that door, if you go out and look at it and stick a rod down there, it'd be very difficult to move the door. In other words, the door is still attached to the cable, so it's not going to be like you can move that door very easy. If the rod was off, you'd be able to move the door with no effort whatsoever. It'd just flop. But if the rod's attached, then I would go to the control head. It's clipped into the bottom of the control head, and it's got a little round split washer that holds the cable to the control head. If that little cable washer comes off, you have free totally. The cable may be in heat, may be in the cold position. Nothing will change. And the cable will be just really loose. I mean, the lever. You can't even, you won't feel any resistance. And I've seen that happen. The little clip come off, or the tip break off or something. But the door won't be easily moved if you look in that separator housing.
So you just told me how you can fix the cable, right?
Yeah, you have to take the control head, the shift plate off, and then take your control head out and raise it underneath and see where the cable comes in, and look to see if the little plastic stem sticking down has got the split washer on it. And generally the little split washer will be laying down there on the floor below it, and just push it back on there.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's broke off, then you have to get a different control head.
Then you said if you need an adjustment, there's an adjustment collar in the middle of the cable below.
Collar on the sleeve, right about the center of your floor panel, or right below your heater casing.
Oh, forward edge.
In the middle of the cable, when you locate the cable, sometimes you have to remove your lower panel, but if you locate the cable, you'll see it. It's just turn it clockwise or
There's something in here too about sometimes you just turn the cable to shorten or lengthen the cable.
Yeah, it's just according if it's out. But generally, you will get heater cold, but it may not get real cold. It may not get real hot. That's just a finessing cable. It won't move it over an inch. I mean, it's not going to move it full travel.
Is there any other causes to the same symptom?
I would be very unusual to have a blocked heater. I have seen some foreign material, a piece of paper or something, get over the heater core where you didn't have any air flowing through it. But
for the heat to stay constant.
If you didn't get hot, and your door, say your car didn't get hot.
Okay.
All right. But you move your lever, and it still don't get hot.
And the lever feels fine. There's no play.
And everything seems fine. You open your door, and your door is moving back and forth.
Is that normal?
Check for a water shutoff valve not functioning. It's not letting water go through the heater core.
How do you check for a water shutoff valve not functioning?
There's a lever on it, and it works off a vacuum, and they stick.
Where's it located?
It's on the pipe going into the heater core, and it comes off the radiator hose. And there's a vacuum line going to it off of your AC. You turn your AC on, it blocks the heater core fluid coming through. But in 1988, that was eliminated. This is only on 84 through 87.
84 through 87. So that would be...
If you didn't have any heat...
How do you replace it?
Or it was heat all the time. It would still work. Air conditioner still work. But if you didn't block it off, it just wouldn't be as cold. A lot of times you can move it and lubricate it a little bit, and it'll work, but generally you just have to replace it. But you got to find out, do you have vacuum going to it when you turn your AC on?
Why?
But this is what controls the heat going through the heater core. 88, they eliminated it, said you didn't need it.
Kind of like an appendix.
Well, you needed it anyhow, but that's the way they said you didn't.
So they still make that part, and they make...
I don't know whether they do or not.
Jason's
got them.
Reproduction.
All you got to do is just put a vacuum pump on it to check it and see if it moves.
That's what you got to do, and then if you have to replace that, you just replace it, right?
Yeah, it's just take the hoses off and replace it.
Oh.
There are different ones for different years, but I mean it's the same thing. But in 88 they don't have it, so
okay.
Or later. But that would either give you coolant or no coolant. But I had one at Effingham last year that it was blocked. It wouldn't let. He had no heat.
Okay, so we just did 84 through 89 manual on those symptoms. Now, do you want to do 84 through 89 electronic?
You got time?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Well, let's do it, because it's all, we're going to try to tackle one category at a time, and the symptoms are the same.
Well, no.
I meant like the heat, let's just stick with the first symptom of the heat's the same temperature. You can't adjust it up or down.
Well, you got buttons that control that.
Okay.
But the rod, for one thing.
On the electronic.
The electronic.
What's the first thing you want to check? What do you want to troubleshoot on that electronic for that?
Say it doesn't get hot or doesn't get cold, or it's hot all the time or whatever. Turn your key on, start your car, put your AC to 90. All right.
90 degrees.
90 degrees. And then it should be high speed, max high speed automatically. It's controlled, regulated if it's 85, from 65 to 85. And then when 60 is high speed 10, number fan speed, and 90 is a 10 fan speed number, high as you go. Anyhow, you turn it to 90 degrees. You go out and there's a blower module inside the evaporator casing where the resistor was on the manual. You unplug it and then take the module out and then plug it back up and shine a light down in there. See if the motor does not have to be running for this to go into position. When it goes to 90, that door should electrically move over to the heat position. Now, if it does not move over to the heat position, the first thing you got to look, do you have external temperature light flashing?
That would be the question.
Yeah.
If yes?
Do you have an external temperature light flashing?
If yes?
If you have an external temperature light flashing, you have a fault in the system in the car in AC. There's a code set.
Okay. If no?
And you can still have a bad problem, but it might not set a code. But I'm saying if that light's flashing, that's an indicator that you have a fault in your AC system. In 90, it's whatever mode you were in, the indicator button would flash, but that's a different world there.
84 to 89, so...
No, 86 to 89.
Got it. Okay, then, so if there is no fault code because the light's not flashing...
Okay, then you take that out, and it goes to the heat position, or it doesn't go, it doesn't move to... Put it at 60. And see if it goes back to the cold position.
We're looking at the door.
You're actually looking at the door.
Got it.
And if it doesn't, then you've got to look. If that motor was unplugged, you would have a code in your system saying open circuit.
Okay.
You can have a bad motor, and it won't set a code always. You could have a bad programmer or a bad air mix door motor. Now, if you have a code and it says an O2 code, door's bad or something, what I seen, somebody worked underneath the right dash and didn't plug the motor back up. And you have a code coming on, and it won't turn cold or hot. It won't do nothing. It just sets in one position. But the symptom of it is, now, to find the codes is 86 coupe had electronic error. 86 convertibles had no electronic error. They are all manual, no heated mirror, rear defogger. 86 entry was to find the engine, the AC codes was different than any other year, but they failed to put it in the manual until 89 to change, so it confused everybody. To enter the code, you turn the key on, you turn your AC off or on, it don't matter. It's still going to read your codes. You go to the 86, you go to the rear defogger and the manual fan up button and push them at the same time and release the manual fan up button first, and the display will go read 01. That's not a fault code. That's a mode.
Hey, Gordon, I have a question real fast. When we go through every category of every code, we're going to go through the troubleshooting on each code, correct?
Yeah.
Our codes, though, in the book, these are separate codes for a different system. These aren't DIC codes.
What's the difference?
AC's got its own system. It's not tied into ECM or anything.
It's a fault code.
Fault codes on AC is totally AC. Even on a 9-year later, it's strictly AC.
I do understand that the categories are separated, and I was just wondering if, going through all of the codes. Why are you confused? Am I confused? Codes confuse me.
Well, you got to understand.
I was just thinking maybe we shouldn't go through the codes.
Up to 10 fault codes. Okay, you rate them, and well, it's maybe not that many. It's 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 16.
Really?
I got all that information in the AC section.
It doesn't.
You got to understand it.
Is it the AC section of 103?
Yeah.
Okay, he's got it in the AC section of 103, the code.
No, I took that out.
It's on electron AC. It's earlier. It's 86 to 89.
Okay. Because remember the discs that Chris...
They add up. Say you had
We're gonna go back to this, but I'm just trying to get clear on what codes are. Chris sent me a disc of codes, fault codes.
I doubt the AC would be on that.
Okay.
AC is a separate system.
Jason was just saying.
It's not in the engine codes or anything like that. It's got its own system. And in my book, you'll see there will be a chart and a possible combination of numbers.
Jason's trying to...
Code's set. When a code is set, that light will flash.
Right.
And you do this on 86 to entry. When it goes to 01, then you go to the fan, you go to the temperature up button, cool button, and push and release it until you get to 08. And then push the hot button, and whatever number comes up, that's your fault code. Now, it adds codes if you have multiple codes. It doesn't separate them like a 9-year later. Say you had a code 4 temperature sensor and a 16 inside temperature sensor shorted.
Mm-hmm.
You'll come up with a code 20. Now, the book doesn't explain this very good in the service manual, that it adds things together.
So are we...
And then you fix the shorted inside, it goes to a 4. So whenever you fix it, it just subtracts off and leaves the other codes if you got multiple codes. You've got air mixture motor. You've got outside temperature sensor, open or shorted. Inside temperature sensor, open or shorted.
Let's go through the numbers real quick.
Okay, you got in that sheet, in that 103 book.
I'm looking at it.
You'll see the fault codes.
I'm looking at them.
And then you'll have down below a long list. Say, okay, what is a 5? Well, it's a 1 and a 4. It's a possible combination of numbers you could ever have in that AC system. So say you have a inside temperature sensor shorted. Okay, that's the one above your head in the halo. The convertible on the 87 through 89 is on the rear deck lid.
Okay, so this is what we're going to talk about. What would be some of the symptoms that they would receive for this code?
You would have a code 16.
Okay, so you got the code 16.
You would look for shorted on inside temperature sensor.
How do you do that?
You undo the sensor to start out with in the halo to see if the sensor's shorted. There's a pigtail that comes off the halo and runs over to the right side, and Later on, 89, I think we went from the left side up.
How do I know that that's the path they need to take in the fault tree, Gordon? What is would be the symptom?
It's a short in the wire. The wire.
What would be the symptom?
It's a code 16.
Oh, it's just a code 16. They got the code 16. Okay, got it.
It's a code 16. There's a short in a wire or sensor.
Or sensor.
Okay, the wire comes out of the programmer on the firewall. That's the microprocessor of the system. And it comes through the dash. It goes over to the rear body harness connector underneath the right dash, C400. And then it goes through there and it goes up to the halo panel and it goes into the sensor. Or maybe the contacts on the sensor are bad or something. But if you unplug the sensor and the code goes away, it's sensor. Now,
what sensor?
It's the inside temperature sensor up in the rear halo panel.
Okay, so you have to replace that.
Yeah.
And how do you do that?
You take 2 screws and replace it.
Got it. All right.
You have to take your halo panel, drop it down, and then you got a little saddle-like bracket thing with a screw that holds it on there. And it's just easy to replace.
Okay, and then this is, again, 84 through 89?
No, 86.
I'm sorry.
Coupe only, and 87 through 89, convertible and coupe.
Got it. Okay.
Now,
that's one code.
You get in, that's 16. You get into 87 through 89, the entry procedure to read the codes are different. You push...
Now, are there any more codes for that year, though, before we...
Oh, yeah, all kinds of them. I got a list of them.
Start at 1.
Let's start at 1. I got the list here. I want to go through these with you, Gordon.
One's an air mix door motor, isn't it?
Pardon me? I didn't hear you.
That's an air mix door motor, isn't it?
Jay, they're not listed, Jay.
1 is no feedback.
1 is no feedback.
No feedback off the air mix door motor.
You want to do this one with him?
Number 2 is...
A symptom of a 1 would be probably the motor would be unplugged or a bad motor.
Okay. Symptom 1.
The motor is attached to the heater casing, but a little arm comes out. It's controlled by the programmer. It's a 7-volt reference. Positive or negative moves the arm. Well, you set it at 75. It's going to move a potentiometer at 75. Then it sends a potentiometer signal back on a feedback into the programmer. Well, if the programmer doesn't see this feedback, it doesn't know where the air mix door motor is.
Okay, so that's how you want me to type it out, exactly how you just worded it.
That's how it works.
Okay. For the code 1.
That would be the most common. You can have a bad programmer.
We're just going to go through these codes.
A bad air mix door motor. But it's...
What would we be
replacing? To diagnose if it is a motor is, do you have 7 volts coming in on the movement wire, and are you getting a feedback voltage into the programmer?
On what?
Off the programmer.
Off the
air mix door motor.
Off the motor, okay. So how do you test that? With the ohms?
With a voltmeter.
A voltmeter. And they test it how?
Well, you got to put it on the polarity of the wires, the feedback signal, and you know the color of the wires. Look in service manual for the exact color of each wire, and to know which wire is a feedback wire and which one's 7-volt reference signal. It's 7 volts one way, negative, and then reverses polarity, moves the motor the other way, and then you get a feedback signal.
Okay, and so that'll tell you if you have a bad motor.
The simple one other way, too, is just plug another motor in, you'll find out.
Yeah, but most people don't have it.
The code will go away.
Most people don't have a...
Well, I know they don't have it, but there's a fault tree of how you look at voltages. I mean, it gets very lengthy into fault treeing each individual code as far as what the voltages are and how do you go about it.
Where are they?
In the service manual.
Okay. And we can find that for the 80...
No, 1C1 section.
C1 section in the service...
C1's manual AC. 1C section is electronic AC. Okay, now what's the next code? 2?
No, wait. What if it is a bad motor?
It's just a matter of replacing it.
It is remote.
And then you go through the process once you unplug it. Once you take the motor off, it's got 2 7mm screws that hold it to the heater casing. And then you undo your rod clip, just like you would on a manual AC. You move the temperature to 90, and the arm should move rearward. Then you pull the door back rearward and clip it down. That's a preset. It has to be preset in a heat position.
Okay.
And then when you do that, the motor will move forward in a cold position, and you can check it by putting it at 60. You visually look at it, and you will see that motor arm go forward, the furthest thing to seat the door. And you know that the motor is working.
You're looking down through the heater case.
But say someone's worked underneath the right dash and didn't plug the motor up, you will probably get a fault code.
And that's when you're looking down from the firewall at the heater casing.
Yeah, you'll see it. It won't be moving.
Okay. The fault code outside mirror, outside ambient sensor open is 02.
Yeah, that's
What would be the symptom?
a code. If it was,
Oh, delay. Okay.
You would not have a problem with your AC. It's just a calibration factor.
The first thing when they have a problem with their AC is like, do you have a code?
Yeah.
If you don't have
that light flashing.
Okay, got it.
If it's not flashing, then it's a different system.
We're going to go into that after we do the codes.
If the light's not flashing, then you got to find out, well, what's it doing here and here and here.
The O2 display is a 2, right?
The code will, if you enter into the codes, now, remember I said the entry is different. You got to know this, that the 87 through 89, you push external temperature and auto fan button and release auto fan button, and it goes to 01. You go to 01, and then you push the cool button up until you get to 8, and then you push the warm button, and that reads your code. 01 is not the code. That is a mode.
It's a mode.
And that's how you enter into it.
Okay, so that's how you enter it for the AC.
Yeah. And then to get out of it, you just push any key.
Okay, so then...
Although you can't find any key on there, but it's just push a button.
All right, so then they get the code, too.
You know, they get that code, then you'll know what to check. Now, again, they will add codes if you've got multiple codes.
Well, let's just do singular and then multiples. Number 2 would be the outside ambient sensor.
The sensor is located to the right side of the radiator in the front underneath the rear bumper on the frame.
Okay.
It's actually on the panel, bumper panel.
How do you get to it?
You lay down on the ground and it goes up from the bottom side of the bumper on the right side of the radiator. You see a plastic triangular-shaped sensor with 2 wires going into it. The connector is visible from the top by the inside hood ends. You look straight down by the fog lamp connector, and you'll see the 2-wire connector there.
So you remove it?
Yeah, it's just a matter of unplugging it, pull a grommet out, and unbolting it with 1 bolt that holds it on to the panel. If that's the case.
If that's the case, what else?
It goes open.
Open, okay.
It works from 0 to 100,000 ohms. So if you unplugged it, it would just set this code. If you put, say, 50,000 ohms resistance across it, it won't set a code.
Okay.
You would know the sensor was bad and open.
You won't know.
You would know. It would say, okay, I'm getting a reading of 75 degrees or whatever outside.
Right, it could be open, so...
But if the sensor was bad and was open, when you put that resistance across there and the code's gone, I would say it was the sensor. But if you put the resistance on there, you may have an open between it to the forward lamp harness going into the bulkhead into the AC system, to the programmer.
And that's what they have to check.
Yeah. It's tracing that wire all the way outside. Most of the time that it will be in a connection, maybe corrosion, and it's weather pack, but it's You may have a broken wire or anything, but
looking for an opening in the wire.
it's not a common code.
Then you would show
pretty reliable.
How to repair a wire presentation.
If the wire's broke, yeah.
Open. What else? It would be a connection, like
well,
the
connection might be corroded.
Mm-hmm. How do you clean that? Same procedure.
Just undo it and use electrical contact cleaner, clean the terminals.
Reconnect it.
And reconnect it.
That's if the sensor's still good.
Yeah, well, you can check the resistance of the sensor for an open. Put your ohm meter across the sensor itself. You should not read open. It should have some kind of resistant reading. And whether the resistant reading is accurate or not, that's up to your sensor according to the temperature. But if you go to your service manual and go to the 1C1 section, you will have a chart with a temperature and resistant value on it for that.
Right, we could put that chart up there.
Yeah, you can put the chart in there. It will tell you your resistance. At, say, 75 degrees, you should read minimum, maximum, 50,000 ohms or whatever.
So what would be indicating that there's an open in the wire or connection?
The code.
The code, I know.
That's it.
The code, too.
There's no other function system that you would see.
Okay, but it could be a bad sensor, but how could you tell the difference again?
You put a reading across the sensor and see what you got resistance. If it was an open, you would immediately know the sensor was bad because it should not read open.
Got it. Now shorted, ambient, that's an 04.
Now shorted would be different. Shorted would be there would be no resistance and it would be real low. It would be way out of range and it would read code what, 5?
4.
4, yeah. And it would just read a short, and that's just a matter of unplugging it. And then it should read a 3. If it reads a 3 and you unplug it, you got a bad sensor shorted out. It should not set a code when it's plugged up. If your resistance, then you check across it and see what your resistance value is. If the resistance stays real low, you got a shorted out sensor. But say it's in a wire somewhere going back. Unplugging it did not change, you go to a shorted out wire somewhere. The wire...
Where? You say somewhere, but where?
The wire travels underneath the radiator, would be a suspect area. It travels through the harness wire underneath the radiator, goes to the forward lamp harness on the left wheel housing, goes into the bulkhead connector. Off the forward lamp harness goes into the programmer.
And this is a shorted.
Underneath the radiator, sharp edges, I have seen some cases where the wire would get rubbed, where somebody had moved the wire, jacked it and moved or something.
And what do? Repair the wire?
And just repair the wire.
Okay. I'm just going out of your book. You know, it says.
But say you got your manual and you went into your programmer connector underneath the left dash, and you went to that wire and you unplugged it, and nothing happened, and it still showed a short, you would have a bad programmer. But if you unplug it and the problem's gone, then you check that wire resistance to ground.
Okay, but you went back to the manual, and what would be the symptom? Would they have a code? Would they have a code on a manual?
On what? Yes, my list shows that code.
On manual side.
Manual.
I thought you said manual that you'd have a bad programmer. Sorry if I'm confusing you.
No, electronic errors, manual.
You mean in the manual, like the service manual?
So yeah, the service manual. Well, my sheets have got that, and service manual's got that.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I got confused. There's me.
If it was shorted, you would probably not notice a misfunction of your AC or anything. It's just a calibration factor that it can't meet the criteria of maintaining a specific temperature if it doesn't know the inside it versus the outside. So,
Did you want to say something?
You wouldn't be able to control the temperature very good.
On the code I'm going through here for the ignition won't shut off.
And what other code now?
08?
8 is open in the inside temperature sensor.
In-car sensor open, and then 6.
Well, that's where you go to the sensor, and you unplug the sensor, and you put an ohm meter across it to see if you got a resistant reading. It's also from 0 to 100,000 ohms. And if it's an open, you got a bad sensor.
Okay.
And then you check that connector. You check connector off of your right halo panel, and you check the connector off the dash to the rear body harness connector. If you went and put a specific resistance across that wire with the sensor unplugged and the code went away, then you would say the sensor was bad. But most likely it will either be related to a sensor not being connected good or corrosion or something. It's not reading
the sensors
right resistance
too often.
Huh?
The sensors, they don't go bad too often.
No. It's a pretty reliable sensor, but sometimes the connectors, like on a convertible, you got a deck lid. Okay, it's got a harness wire that comes off and runs over into the center of the deck lid. And sometimes that connector the sensor come unplugged. So you got to look at that. On a coupe, it's up in the left halo.
And the same thing about in the car sensor shorted.
Well, it's the same way. It works off of resistance. If you unplug the sensor and the code goes away, it will change to an 08. Then you know you got a bad sensor.
Bad sensor. Okay, so you go into this here, I'm looking in this packet, it said, change effects, okay, when the ambient sensor is open, okay, ignition won't shut off, the car stays running, and
that's a good one.
I'm like, I right out of here, you know.
Yeah, I know. I've seen this several cases.
Air conditioning?
Yeah, no, it's in the AC section.
Yeah, I know.
But it's a rear defogger relay defective. It feeds back 12 volts into the 300 ignition system, and the car stays running. He takes the keys out of it, and it just keeps on running.
Right.
And the most common thing I've seen is a rear defogger relay.
That's the defective C49 relay, C68.
Yeah.
What do you say? I don't know what those two numbers.
C68 is electronic air. C49 is a rear defogger option. It's more common. It could happen on a 84 and 5 or 80 manual AC. The coupe 86. The rear defogger module on the control head is the relay.
Okay.
It could do the same thing, but the most problems that we had was the square, shiny, aluminum-looking relay. The 86 was taped to the harness wire by the programmer, and then the 87 through 89 was attached to the programmer with a 7mm screw. This relay being bad is you shut the key off and it feeds back through your ignition and just keeps your car running. The 84 had a separate symptom of its own. You shut the car off and it keeps running.
What's the relay? It's a what relay?
Rear defogger relay.
Rear defogger relay.
The 84 can do this, but unlikely the rear defogger relay. Its most likely problem would be an E-cell timer. An E-cell timer was a module in the center of the dash harness. You have to take the crash pad off to access it. There was no serviceable part, and after operated 400 hours, it opens itself out, and it was for emissions. And it was not used, but the gauge fuse was a power feed for it, and I've seen this short out.
This module.
Get the E-cell timer. And if you don't know about it, you'll never find why that gauge fuse is getting power.
And this is the same symptom. Ignition won't shut off.
Yeah, because it had a hot wire and an engaged circuit.
And that's 84.
That's just on 84.
Right. And then the 85 through 89 for this symptom.
The rear defogger relay is the most common thing.
Okay. Then you have gauge fuse feedback.
That's what it is.
Okay, to ignition. Got it. Energy drain.
You never suspect that's what it is.
Well, is there anything else besides the relay that it could be?
Anything that feeds into the gauge fuse, but it has to come off a relay that's constant power going to it.
So most likely that's what it is. Have you seen it anything else?
Not too much of anything else. I mean, you could have anything with a gauge. You got to have the combination of the gauge fuse and a hot wire.
I would put that under the category as HVAC, but people may not.
No, it may not be related to.
Well, when I type the symptom, about the ignition won't shut off,
I don't necessarily put that with AC.
No, I know. What would you put it with? I mean, what would a person look at? What would they be thinking? Ignition system?
Yeah, I'd say ignition system.
That's what I'm going to put it in there too, as well.
It is. Well, what it's doing, it is ignition system.
You could put it in multiple.
It's giving 12 volts to the coil feed wire all the time. And the symptom of it is, if you unplug your coil feed wire, the car will die.
If you unplug the what?
If you have your key off, you should not have voltage on the pink wire going into the distributor coil.
But if you unplug what?
The coil wire.
Coil wire.
The pink wire, white connector, going into the distributor.
Where is that located?
On the distributor.
Distributor, got it.
If you unplugged it, it will kill your motor. You
And that's
do not have voltage on that wire with your key off. If you have voltage on that wire with your key off, then you go through the process of pulling, first thing, gauge fuse. Then you'll know it's on a gauge fuse circuit when the voltage drops when you pull the gauge fuse.
Okay. Is there a, besides the, replacing the defroster relay, is that easy to do? You totally take off the crash pad, told me all that, right?
No. That's the E-cell timer.
Oh, that's the E-cell timer. How do you...
The lower dash panel where the programmer is.
Is where the...
Yeah, and the rear defogger heated mirror relay is same thing. Is on a manual control head, except for, an 86 convertible didn't have one. But it's part, when you turn the knob, that is the relay you're moving. I mean, that is the module. It's replaceable by taking off the control head.
Okay. And
then you get cars that do not, early 84s, that do not have manual AC. You may see that plug laying in there being not used. They just left it on most of the cars and had manual and AC. But you will see, if the car did not have, 84 through 87 was an option. 88 was standard on all rear foggers. If you got a car that did not have a heated mirror or rear defogger, the control head would not have a rear defogger on it. The wire would still be there.
Okay.
Laying there, not used.
And can that still happen to it?
No, it wouldn't have a rear defogger.
Right. Is there any, real quick off the cuff, give me a couple challenge questions if you can, if you think of any.
What's advanced? What's the voltage going from a programmer to air mix store motor?
I don't know.
From an 86 to an 89 electronic air. 7 volts.
How many?
7 volts.
7 volts, okay. Give me any more, a couple more you could think of? Different, what's the first thing you check if you're,
say you have it, you got 1984 through 87, and you don't have any heat.
Okay.
And your selector slide seems to be okay, like you move it from cold to heat, and that seems okay. First thing to check.
I know.
Water shutoff valve.
Water shutoff valve. I thought it was going to be a plugged up, whatever the heck that thing was called. Orion.
That's AC.
That's AC,
I'm
okay.
saying no heat.
Corvette. Okay, so what's the first thing you check when you have no heat?
Water shut-off valve, see if it's functioning.
Did we even go into that?
Yeah.
Well, I did, yeah. We're checking the vacuum, putting a hand vacuum pump on it, and checking to see if the lever moves.
Right.
If it doesn't move, it's going to shut the water off going to the heater core. The door could be a perfect position. Well, you won't have no water in there and it won't get hot.
What are you replacing?
If it's bad, you replace the pipe shut-off valve assembly.
The shut-off valve assembly.
You got to make sure you got vacuum going to it, or it's got vacuum and the vacuum doesn't drop off or something with the AC off.
So it's the whole assembly.
Well, yeah, it's all made on the pipe. But that's a very common thing.
That's going to be the first thing to look at.
Yeah, that sticks so quite often on them.
How do you replace that?
Take the heater hoses off and unbolt it and replace it.
Okay. You think of any other challenge questions?
Yeah, how do you, what's the difference between reading the codes on an electronic error and an 86 and 87? Entry procedure is different.
Entry procedure. Codes are the same, but the entry procedure is different.
Yeah, the codes are the same, the entry procedure is different. If you don't know that, you'd never read them. I had training centers call me at work because they couldn't get them to work. I said, your book's wrong. No, we got the manual and everything. I said, your book's wrong.
Are these all codes?
1 through 16.
1 through 16?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I see is failure codes for Corvette C68 are right here. And then, okay, the next one says AC gets hot, then cold on car movement. You mean when you're driving and the car's moving?
Mm-hmm.
The AC gets hot and then cold on car movement.
Yeah.
Air mix, rod, boost to motor. We already went through that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But also your coolant fan's not coming on.
That's right. We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
AC.
See, when you're moving down the road, you got air flowing across the condenser. If you got a certain degree of air and you slow down, then the air conditioner won't get cold. Then you speed up and the air flows more across it, reduces head pressure, and AC works. Or low on freon, it's just cycling out.
Right, okay. AC fan blows with control head in off position. Blown 5-amp fuse on blower wire at evaporator unit or an open circuit.
Yeah, it looks for a feedback circuit, and that's goes into the programmer. It'll go off with your keys off, but when your keys on, even in an off position, it'll blow a high-speed fan all the time.
And that's a blown 5-amp fuse.
Yeah.
Or an open circuit.
Do you know?
And that's the same procedure we talked about the open.
Do you know what years that's good for?
No, what years?
86 through 96. Except in 94, 94, they put it in the main fuse box. They took it off the evaporator casing and put it in the main fuse box.
5-amp fuse?
But yeah, it will do the same thing on them as it did on the 86.
Where is the 5-amp fuse besides on the 94?
It's in the fuse box at the bottom of the fuse box, in your dash.
Mm-hmm.
Regular fuse box. It's a feedback circuit fuse. I had one at Bowling Green Show here. The guy had a dealership, and he brought it over there, and it was a 96, I think it was. And they couldn't figure it out. And I looked out there, and I said, they moved it. And I went in the inside fuse and looked at the book and took fuse out, and it's blown fuse, and I put a fuse in, it's okay. But if it's a blown fuse, it will...
What will some of the symptoms be for just a blown?
It just blows high speed all the time in all positions.
Okay.
You can't control the fan speeds.
And the open circuit is the same, trace the wires.
Well, you got connectors inside that go off the engine harness into the dash harness. And if you had it goes from a red to a purple wire, but if you have a loose connection and open, no feedback signal, it's the same thing as a blown fuse. And it will blow high speed all the time.
On the open circuit?
Yeah.
And that's where it's from the engine to the dash?
Well, it's from the AC programmer, the blower module. It comes off, it's circuited through your fan motor, feedback off your fan motor coming into the programmer.
That's where you're going to look for the open?
Yeah. The open would normally be the fuse, but say the fuse was good. Then you go underneath the right dash where the harness wire hooks into the dash harness and see if you got a loose connection there. Somebody may have worked underneath there and the connector's not good, or go to the programmer and to see if that wire is connected good into the programmer, the feedback wire.
How can you tell if you have a bad programmer? Did we go over that already?
You could have anything be bad on a programmer. We hadn't got into the AC bi-level air functions and all of that.
But you don't just say you just have a bad programmer is a bad programmer, right?
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
When it comes into the AC bi-level, it could be, I showed Jason fittings that get dried out and loose in there, and you can put some dielectric grease on them and reconnect them and clean the tips out and stuff, and particularly 95, 96s. I don't know why they were dirty. But another thing on the airflow on 86 through 89s that's not in the books anywhere, that the airflow will not work correctly if the programmer is not mounted off 30 degrees vertical position. In other words, it has to be set in vertically, like it's mounted on the firewall, or the coil stick, not releasing the vacuum to the doors, and they won't function correctly.
And the programmer won't function correctly.
Yeah, and if you don't know that, you ain't going to fix it, because they lay it in the floor, plug the lines up and wire up, and then it don't work, and they put a new one in, it don't work. Put it in the vertical position, and it'll work. They didn't send the Volson out on that. They didn't. I told Laura Cummings about it, release engineer, and they never did send it out. The dealers didn't know, and I got calls all the time on it.
Okay. And that would be, what would be the symptom for it? Like, what would make you point people into that direction to look for that particular little thing there?
Change the programmer, and it still does the same thing. You don't have the correct airflow.
You don't have the correct airflow.
You get into the airflow, you got vacuum coming off a check valve at the motor, and it comes through the right dash, goes underneath it, and 84 through 80, 80, well, we didn't get into 88 only had one vacuum line coming in. It didn't have a water valve, but you'd have two vacuum lines. One going out, one coming in. But one comes off the check valve, comes into the car, goes to the programmer. It's a black vacuum line. It goes into the block that goes on the programmer. When it sees this and you say you push heater, it releases vacuum to the heater door on the blue line and makes the heater door function. Then when you push defrost, it puts vacuum onto the pink vacuum line and actuates the can to make it come out the top. Then when you put, say, bi-level, it puts vacuum on a tan vacuum line. This is on 84 to 89. On 90, it's just got one tan line, not a red line. Red lines are closed, tan's open. And it puts vacuum air and it opens the top can. Then you have an orange vacuum line, which goes over to the fresh air inlet door vacuum, where you put on max air, it closes the door and circulates the air inside the car. And that's basically how the vacuum system works. Now, you have the same thing vacuum on a manual. AC does the same thing. but it just worked off the control head instead of, it doesn't have a programmer. It just works off the mechanical control head with a little thing that turns. But the electronic air is all controlled by the programmer. Now, anytime you got a vacuum leak and you got low vacuum coming in, a hole in that check valve or anything, your bi-level won't change correctly. It'll be real slow or won't change. In other words, you go to defrost, the air stays on the floor. If you have no vacuum comes in, air comes out on the floor, bi-level and defroster all at the same time. That was the symptom that if you have air coming out everywhere, that you don't have any vacuum coming in. It's a kind of a backup system that if your vacuum goes out, you got air coming out on your windshield and your heater. You always have a degree of air coming out of the windshield and heater because they got holes in the doors. The government safety factor that if you lose vacuum or anything, you're going to have a degree of air coming out on your windshield. So a noticeable difference when you shouldn't have very little coming out with heater coming out defroster bi-level. So everything's going to be dumping out the bottom.
Right.
But that's vacuum. You have 15 inches vacuum coming in on the line. You should. Now it can be not have vacuum. Can be in a hole in the check valve, broken vacuum line, a kink vacuum line.
Well, what are the symptoms again for all this stuff?
It won't change.
Temperature stays the same?
No, the airflow.
Airflow. Okay, airflow. Got it.
It'll all come out the bottom. It'll come out everywhere. Defroster may not work.
And there's no fault codes for this?
No.
Okay, so we're going to go back to fault codes because we got to finish fault codes, but since you're going down this road, we might as well go down this road.
Well, the fault codes, we were done with them.
Oh, we are? Okay, I thought there
was all of them.
We did them all? Okay. All right, good. But this airflow, the airflow that you're talking about, you just said that there's going to be multiple reasons, right? And it's one symptom. So let's do.
Well, say
troubleshooting and give me all of the possibilities.
First thing you check if you got air that doesn't come out the defroster, comes out everywhere. The first thing you check is you go to the motor, and you've got a check valve out there by the left of the distributor. We're covering now 84 to 89.
All the covers.
What do you mean, same symptom?
And a check valve out there coming off the intake, and then you got one coming off your air plenum on the right side, and it goes over to the little line on the left side distributor, 85 to 89. And then you got a water vacuum line coming over there going inside, and it puts vacuum when the AC's on. But the first thing you do is to check the valve and see if you got vacuum on that coming out of that check valve, because you may have a hole in the check valve or a loose vacuum line. If you've got vacuum there, then you remove the lower dash panel with the light on it, and then you got, even though the 88 did not have two lines, they only had one, they still got a two-line connector, one just empty. You check the vacuum coming in there to see if you got vacuum on one of them lines. You don't have vacuum, and you go right between. Why do I don't have vacuum between there and the motor? I got a broken line, vacuum line, which is part of the harness wires, inside the harness wire. If you got vacuum there, and the hose is not kinked or anything over there, because sometimes you'll work on them and kink it because it's flexible line, and they're disconnected when you put the lower panel on. Then you go and remove the left lower dash panel, and you go to the programmer. Now, there's a little split washer that holds the vacuum hoses to the programmer. The programmer's mounted on a firewall above the accelerator pedal in the vertical position, the connector on the bottom. On the later models from the top, but
presentation.
You take a little split washer with a needle nose pliers and you pull it off the stud that holds the block on. Now, if the reason the little split washer's on there is so hard to get off, that blame me. They paid me for that idea that they were putting a nut on there and tightening it up and it was leaking. So I put this split washer on there and don't put no pressure but holds it on there, and then you can't get the washer off. Once you get the washer off, unplug the block, and it'll only go back on one way the way it's indexed. The black, check to see if you got vacuum on the black vacuum line. If you have vacuum there, then you take a small vacuum hose and go from the black to the blue with the engine running. All air should be coming out the heater. Then you go from the black to the pink. All air should be coming out the defroster. Then you go from black to tan. All air should be coming out the bi-level, the front, the top of the dash, where above your radio. Then you put vacuum from to the yellow, to orange. Your fresh air in the door should function. That's a little harder to tell on that one. But if you have, you had one of these vacuum lines that was off somewhere, it will make your others misfunction because it drops the vacuum too low to make them work.
What's the problem?
Well, low vacuum is the most common. No or low vacuum is generally the problem.
Okay.
It may be in a connection. It may be to the motor. But if it's going into the programmer and you do this test and it passes it, it's related to the programmer.
Ah.
You may have loose hoses on the backside of the programmer.
Okay.
Now,
so when you check the loose hoses,
they changed them later on and went to some crappy rubber hoses back there that leaked. But what you do is you pull, you could actually pull vacuum with a hand pump on it, but it would only release vacuum when the coil's activated. In other words, if you had it out on a bench and you go to the black tip and put a vacuum line on that little hose, it should hold vacuum. But I would take the rubber hoses off the back and make sure that they're sealed good and put silicone grease on them and slide them on or whatever.
Otherwise, what could it be?
It would be a defective programmer.
So when you were doing all these tests, you were just taking like a little jumper?
Yeah, a little vacuum jumper, about
black to the different.
Yeah, one of the little plastic lines or something, like you use on the engine, and about 4 inches long, just long enough to loop back, go off the black vacuum line over to the individual ones of the engine running, and with a high-speed fan on, so you know it's blowing.
Right.
And check to see its function. Most likely not going to be a can. And then if a can is bad, that's a different world there. But usually it's just going to be a programmer or vacuum related.
And if it's the vacuum, what do you do?
If it's the vacuum, you got to find out where the vacuum's problem is. If you don't have vacuum on the black line at the programmer, but you got vacuum on the right side of the dash, you got a cut or a kinked hose going across that dash.
That's what you said.
And then what you do, you run another vacuum line separate and just leave it in there and hook it on the other side by the programmer.
Okay,
so you've got vacuum on it. If you do not have vacuum from the outside, then most likely you got a black plastic line probably broke at the motor or something in the back of the harness wire in the motor. Because if you took a rubber hose, a small rubber hose, and went from your check valve outside your door, brought it underneath the dash, hooked it to the black line in the dash, and everything works, that will show you that that line is broke from there to the check valve somewhere. And this happens a lot of times when engine, transmission work has been done, the harness wire has been hit, moved, and the plastic becomes very brittle, and it'll break off.
What do you do about it?
Huh?
What do you do about it?
You have to run another vacuum line or splice it.
How do you do that?
You run another vacuum line, a little black vacuum hose.
Okay.
Or you can run a small vacuum hose if you like, but then you got to go through the firewall somewhere that you can access that hose inside. I did one with students, and I did a little opposite. I didn't go through the right side. I took the vacuum hose and went through the cruise control vacuum hose grommet and went from the left side over into the programmer.
You don't want us to do that, do you?
It's very hard to get on the right side because of the heater casing in there.
So you recommend doing it the other way?
It's easier that way. Believe it or not. You can take it, the vacuum line, if it is going from there to the inside of the right side of the car. Your odds are your white vacuum line coming off going to your AC, to your water shutoff valve would probably be all right because it doesn't go across the back of the motor. It just goes out to the right.
So what other?
You could go and run you a vacuum line to the left side of the dash, come on top of the steering column, go over in the center of the dash. Go over to the programmer. You don't have to go to the center of the dash. Go to the programmer. Look into that black vacuum line going into your programmer, and you got vacuum on with your engine running. It's a lot easier to do that than go from the right side. The right side, there's heater casing there, and you can't really get in there to run a wire, to run that vacuum line above that lower panel. But it's easier to do it from the left side. That's the way I do it. It's quicker and easier.
So that's just if for the blower.
If you got a broken line on the back of the motor, the black plastic line. Now, this occurs on a later models over and by the battery. That black line for the AC bilevel comes off of that line over there, and it gets battery acid on it and eats a hole in it. And
what year?
then the cruise control won't work. See, the cruise control is tied into the same line.
You said later years. What years later?
92 and later.
Okay. So this is all if the blower keeps going.
But if the symptom too, if you have a bad check valve, your cruise probably won't work.
How do you know if you have a bad check valve?
You take the hose off, see if you got vacuum coming out of it.
The symptom. How do you know? What is?
Your AC bilevel won't change.
Won't change. Okay.
Cruise won't work.
I'm perfect for interviewing you.
Your cruise control won't engage.
I have no knowledge.
But you'll notice it probably more on an AC bilevel because a guy may not engage his cruise control driving around town or something, but you notice AC bilevel. It won't change the heater when it's supposed to, or it won't change the AC.
And the bilevel won't change.
Yeah, that's right. Air doesn't change.
Airflow. What other airflow problems are there?
Well, other than a bad vacuum can or programmers being bad.
You told us about the programmer.
The programmers are probably, if you got good vacuum, the most logical would be the programmer.
Right.
You could have a bad programmer even though the fittings are good.
You replaced the programmer.
Replace the programmer.
What about the vacuum?
That's what I'm talking about, the vacuum. If you got to have vacuum coming off your motor into it.
You said a bad vacuum.
That low vacuum will cause it to function slowly or not function. When you accelerate your car and your vacuum goes low on your motor, and if you got a restriction in the vacuum line, it may drop that vacuum low enough that nothing will work. Or it may take it 2 or 3 minutes to change That's a symptom that you have low vacuum. You may have a kinked hose, a crack in the line, just a low vacuum.
Okay.
You should have a maximum vacuum. You can tell by feel how much vacuum you got. But it should be a good vacuum. If you put a gauge on it, it should be about 15 inches vacuum.
So we just talked about airflow. Is there anything else about the airflow? We're talking about the 84 through 89 or 86 through 89, electronic or manual airflow.
Yeah, it's all controlled through the control head on a manual.
Oh, the control head?
It doesn't have a programmer. It's a control head, but the color of the vacuum lines are the same.
Okay.
But they work. They got a little block similar to that programmer, but it's on the control head.
Separate piece.
Now let's go back to the codes, or do you want to add anything else? Hey, what about some challenge test questions, or do we have any how-to presentations that we could do for that besides
All kinds of how-tos on them.
On the airflow?
Yeah, you got it. Where's the check valve at?
Where is it?
The first thing you check if your bi-level if your AC is not changing.
Oh, this is a question?
Yeah, you go check valve and see if you got vacuum. And you ask the question, does your cruise control work? If cruise control doesn't work, then first you go to the check valve and say, do I have vacuum coming out of that check valve? And it goes to cruise control. The check valve's got a T on it. One line goes to the cruise, one line goes to your inside your motor. Inside your car to AC control.
Is this a challenge question? So the question?
What would be the first thing to check if your air doesn't change in your car?
Okay, if your air doesn't change.
High level.
High level.
Heater, AC, defroster. Is check the check valve on the motor to see if you have vacuum coming inside.
And then if you do?
Then you got to go through the process that I said, remove the lower panel, check vacuum air. And then if it's a manual, you go to control head to check if you got vacuum on the black line. And then you go to electronic air, you go to the programmer, check if you got vacuum on the black line.
Okay. Any other questions for the challenge for the AC, for the airflow?
Well, if you got a bad vacuum can, if you put vacuum on that line and the can doesn't actuate, you check for a bad vacuum line or loose connection to the can. If you think you got a bad vacuum can, you get a hand vacuum pump, put it on the can, and pump it up and see if the can actuates. If the can does not actuate, you got a bad can.
Okay, is that how that's like a presentation to see if you have a bad can?
That's how you got to do it. You got to have a hand vacuum pump.
Okay. And
mostly unlikely.
That's the most unlikely thing, though.
Most unlikely.
Okay.
I have seen them. I have had to change them at work. I did all AC at work, but
how do you change one?
Oh God, you don't want to get into that.
Come on, Gordon, tell me. Hurry up.
The bottom can, you go from the right dash with an extension. You remove the lower heater duct and go an extension for the heater vacuum can. The other one, you got to split your heater casing on the right side like you were changing a heater core, and then go with an long extension all the way over in to take the speed nuts off, because you got to take the speed nuts off, pull it back, and then turn it to unhook it off the door. And the top one, you got to take the crash pad off and go in from the top and change the top can. They're very hard to get to.
Big job.
There's plastic cans with diaphragms in them.
But it has to be done if it has to be done.
Yeah, you can do it. I've changed them. I just don't like to.
Anything else on the airflow?
Do you have high speed? Does you have enough air coming out? Now, that's if it comes out correctly. Is it high speed?
Is it high speed?
You have from 1 to 10 fan speeds on your AC.
Oh, okay.
On electronic. And you look at the number, and you can manually push a manual button, take it up to 10, and you'll max increase. A manual got a high-speed fan relay involved. I wrote letters and stuff on that.
Right. How do you know?
High-speed fan relay, you will, when you turn the fan on, your fan is going to be running low all the time on yellow wire. And then you can check your voltage on your wire on your rheostat, and then your purple wire going out to your blower motor on manual. But on high speed, it's goes to the relay with the orange wire will get 12 volts, and that's why it's called a high-speed fan relay. It's right below the blower motor mounted on the evaporator casing.
That relay, the high-speed fan relay, can go out?
Yeah, and it can go out and just no high speed.
No high speed.
It's just, or it can be no speeds period, but no high speed is symptom.
Okay.
Very not unusual to see it, but fixed one at been to 4 shops and they couldn't fix it.
Really?
I checked, there was an orange wire going high speed relay, and they had a bad relay.
Bad high speed relay.
Yeah, and it's so easy to unplug and put a new one in.
How do you get to it?
Stick your hand down there and unplug it. You can see it.
So it's either the relay could be, as far as airflow, the high-speed fan relay.
How you change it is in my process of high-speed fan relay that I just wrote down on all the relays access.
I'll be getting that.
Yeah, I got all that.
Any other challenge questions you want to throw out there? We need as many as we can pile up into the live.
Okay, manual AC. You have no high speed.
There you go. What year?
84 to 89. What do you look for?
I don't know.
Bad high-speed fan relay. Number 1.
How do you test that again?
You see if you've got 12 volts.
That's how you find
on the orange wire going to the relay.
You test it to see if you have 12 volts, and if you do...
If you got 12 volts, you got a bad relay.
If you have 12 volts, you got a bad relay. And if you don't?
If you don't have 12 volts, then that comes off of go back inside your car and check to see if you got off the AC controls, that if you've got 12 volts coming off the orange wire.
Oh. And if you don't?
Bad switch.
Bad switch? Is that what you said, a bad switch?
Yeah. You don't see many switches go bad, but...
Okay, but that's what it'll be.
You see a lot of relays.
Okay. Okay. So we know how to test if it's a bad relay.
Well, you can check also the voltage coming out, the fan speeds. The voltage comes out on manual AC to a rheostat and evaporator casing, and it'll have a low voltage of about like 9 volts on the yellow wire. And then you go to your tan wire and your blue wire, and you'll see the voltage increase, and it'll be up to about 11 volts or 10.5. And it'll be coming out on a purple wire. This purple wire leaves there and goes over to a high-speed fan relay. And then you got a ground wire, and then you got a power wire going into it. It's hot all the time. And then you got orange wire, which is 12 volts bypass to turn on high speed. Then you got an output goes over to the blower motor. And then the blower motor pigtail's grounded. Later on it was a weather seal, but grounded. That's how you check with an ohm meter. Voltmeter is you check the voltage going out. And with no high-speed fan, if you unplug the fan motor and check the voltage, you wouldn't have 12 volts. And that's a good indication that your relay is bad, because you won't have high voltage. But if you had voltage coming in on orange wire and you just had not 12 volts coming on the blower motor, then your relay is bad.
Okay.
If the relay wasn't grounded, the blower motor probably wouldn't work, period. The relay wouldn't function. Or a poor ground might make the relay intermittent. Go off and on, or speed up and slow down.
But that doesn't mean it's bad.
No, but there's a ground wire on 85s through 89s on the uniframe, right below the AC liquid line. That's the AC blower ground wire.
Where's that at?
Right below your AC liquid line by your pressure switches in front of the evaporator casing on the frame.
Oh, on the frame.
And if that's not on there, your blower won't function right.
Wow, okay.
You get into 1990, if that blower ground wire's off, the car won't start.
Oh, you're killing me.
That's a ground for your ECM injector quad drivers.
All right, got it. It's done. Okay, so we're looking at, I thought I remember hearing you say one time, maybe I'm wrong, about maybe the ducts. Is there ducts that maybe like you got the blowers on high and everything, and you can hear it, and all that's working fine, but the air is just not coming into the car?
Well, you got to find out if you got a restriction of felt or something stuck into it, or
a what?
Or your blower motor is actually turning fast enough. And I got one case where a guy changed the blower motor, and the blower motor's running backwards.
Okay.
Put the wrong blower motor on it.
Wrong blower motor. Okay, but what about, like, you can hear everything working, but you're not getting, like, it's not blowing, the air's not coming into the car?
Well, that's when you look for a restriction.
Where's that?
Pull your blower motor off.
Okay.
And you got screws that hold it on to your evaporator casing, and you pull your blower motor off. You don't really have to take your panels off or anything. You can get to it on a C4. And then pull your blower motor out, and then shine a light in there and see if you can see any. I've seen leaves. I've seen paper. Sometimes I've seen leaves get in there, and it sounds like a spoke in a card and a spoke of a bicycle wheel going brrrr.
I was just going to ask for an example.
And that's the sound you'll get, and that's a leaf has dropped down. And my S10, I got mice got in there, and they get chopped up when that motor starts up, and they really make a racket.
Really?
And they get to stinking because they're dead mice in that blower motor. And this can happen if you have fresh air inlet, and it goes in through that blower motor, a mouse gets in that squirrel cage. He goes on the opposite side of it and gets chopped up.
Oh, thank you.
It gets stinking, and then you got to take the blower motor out and reach in there with your hand and clean it out.
Oh, man. I would probably put the recommendation of a rubber glove.
Well, that's up to you, but I've done it on the highway before. I want to get in there, and being out here in the woods, we picked them up like that. But
out there in the woods?
I see leaves get in there and do that.
Okay.
And
not like a duck out of place or something like that.
It's just something come loose, and it got on that blower, and it just makes a brrrr sound.
It's working, but you're not getting the feed.
Well, yeah, you usually get this thing, but you'll hear that noise,
and
you'll think, well, it's just something dropped down in there. And you take the blower motor out and reach your hand in there and take the leaves out or whatever. I've seen paper in there. We used to get paper once in a while or tape from assembly and get it in there and not have to take it out. But usually the customer wouldn't see that. But I've seen leaves in there.
Okay, so that's airflow. We got lots of other parts. We didn't even finish all the codes, I don't think. Here they are. The codes are only on electronic, right?
Yeah.
And that's 86 through 89.
Well, 86 coupe.
Coupe, got it. I went through 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. I did those. But are there any more codes?
No.
Okay. Just making sure. And then,
well, later on there is a 90 and later because of different codes. But that's
right. We're going to do those later. The compressor won't kick in, and the Freon's okay. You put down here.
You could have a low-pressure cycling switch.
Hold on, what's the first thing you're going to do here now?
Now, what years is
I
it?
need the fault tree. I just got this out of your 103 book.
What year?
The C68, troubleshooting a C.
What years?
I guess you're going to have to tell me, Gordon.
Well, it varies.
All right.
Symptoms are totally different.
What year do you want to start off with?
84 through 89.
84 through 89?
Yeah, the 90 and later AC is totally different all the way through everything.
Okay, we're just going to stick with the 84 through 89, so the compressor won't kick in.
Compressor won't kick in, but the thing you got to find out.
Power should be on black stripe wire. It comes from a 25 amp AC fuse. The green wire, this is all you wrote in here?
Yeah.
So what's the symptoms? What would be the compressor? How would you know it's not kicking in?
You see the clutch.
The what? The clutch?
The clutch on the front of the compressor wouldn't engage.
That's how you could tell?
Yeah, what happens is electronic clutch.
Oh.
And when it gets 12 volts, it throws the clutch back and turns the pump. Otherwise, the pulley on the compressor is just free running until the pump's engaged.
What would be the problem? Why would I think that...
You got first of all find, do you have voltage going to the compressor?
Okay, I'm the blonde driving my car right now, and what would be my symptom? Why would I point somebody...
Hot and bothered.
Why would I point somebody to... Yeah, I agree. So the air conditioning's not working? Is that what you're saying?
It's not working.
Okay.
All of a sudden the car doesn't get cool.
The car doesn't get cool all of a sudden, or just it doesn't cool?
It just doesn't cool.
Okay.
It could be fan's not coming on. It's disengaged compressor. Low on Freon.
Right. Freon's okay. So now.
If your Freon, how do you know the Freon's okay? I mean.
You did the Freon test.
You unplug the low pressure cycling switch.
Is this for the Freon okay procedure?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Unplug the low pressure cycling switch. But how can you check if the Freon's okay if the compressor doesn't come on?
If the compressor, that's interesting. How do you do that?
Your pressure won't be right. You can't. You can't check if Freon being okay if the compressor doesn't come on.
Why would you ask me how do you do it and then tell me you can't do it?
You have to unplug the low pressure cycling switch and put a jumper wire across it to see if the compressor kicks in. If the compressor kicks in, then you have a question, does it have enough Freon?
This is the question, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. But
All right, does it have enough Freon?
And
if I put a gauge on it, and I put that jumper wire on there, and it shows the correct amount of Freon, you got a bad low-pressure cycling switch.
Okay, now, this is if the compressor won't kick on, and we're only checking to see if the Freon's okay. And if the Freon's okay, you got a low, what?
Low-pressure cycling switch is bad.
Is bad. And then you fix that. How do you fix that?
It just unscrews off of the liquid line. There's an O-ring on the evaporator casing suction line. There's an O-ring and a Schrader valve. You don't lose Freon. So when you unscrew it, there's no Freon will come out. And you just screw a new one on and plug it back up.
And then everything should work?
Yep.
So what if the Freon, okay, then you fill the Freon, okay.
Well, if the Freon's not okay, you do a Freon system check and find out if you got a leak or whatever the problem is, why there's not Freon in the system.
Right, but the compressor won't kick in.
But the compressor, you can't read the Freon. First of all, you got to see if the compressor doesn't kick in.
The Freon's okay.
Say you jump across the cycling switch and the compressor doesn't kick in.
Okay.
First thing you check, do I have voltage going to the compressor?
How do you do that?
With the volt ohm meter.
Got it.
Say I don't have voltage going to the compressor.
What does that mean?
84 and an 85, might have 86. There's a 3-wire connector tied to the AC liquid line, and you have corrosion on the connector, and it won't let voltage go to the compressor.
Oh, so
then you got to see, do I have a voltage signal on that low-pressure cycling lead coming from the control head?
And if you don't, it's probably the corrosion?
Well, if you got electronic air, there's a voltage on that. If you've got a manual air, it's a ground. The voltage comes in on the green wire on a manual AC, and you take a digital ohm meter and you see if you got voltage on the green wire of the compressor. If you have voltage there, then the cycling switch is a closed to ground. But on electronic air, that's a voltage signal with a permanent ground. And the voltage system opens and closes the voltage to the compressor.
And then what would you have if you have voltage on electronic?
That means your control head's okay. It's sending a signal outside the car.
Okay.
But you got to make sure that interface connector is not corroded, because that is the most common thing you're going to see on an 84 and 85.
Why the compressor won't kick in and the freon's okay?
Why the compressor won't kick in. I had a guy that was going to get a dash harness, so they told him his dash harness was shorted out and the compressor wouldn't work. He come up, and that's what it was. I seen that in about 2 minutes. And they had checked everything, said his old dash was bad, and had it 4 days in the shop and couldn't fix it. Had a corroded connector outside.
Outside what?
Out on the liquid line, off the harness wire jumper.
How do you clean that? Same procedure as all clean?
Well, you take the connector out according to the degree of corrosion. This was corroded so bad I had to replace the terminals.
Okay. How do you replace terminals?
You need the wire procedure repair.
Okay.
It's crimper, roll crimp pliers, and
all right.
It's a 56-blade Packard terminal.
What else could cause a compressor to not kick in? The freon's okay. The amp?
Well, not having a good ground, for one thing.
Oh, on the frame?
Yeah, electronic air, not having good ground on the frame, the compressor wouldn't kick in. A high-pressure cutout switch bad.
Oh, we talked about that, right?
It's in a ground circuit. In other words, if it's not complete, it won't ground the compressor.
And that's common?
No.
No?
But you can have a loose connection. You can have a bad high pressure. What you do, you just unplug and put a jumper wire across it. I have seen them bad, where it just not let the compressor engage. It's on the liquid line. And then on the, let's see, 84, I think it was up on the compressor on 84, but either way, the high pressure kickout is a safety mechanism to keep from blowing the compressor up.
And the compressor could be bad too, right?
Yeah, if you got 12 volts going at ground and the clutch doesn't engage.
And the what?
If the clutch doesn't engage and you got 12 volts and you got a good ground on the black wire, you got a bad compressor.
Okay, how do you fix that?
Change the compressor.
Is that an easy procedure?
Now, you got to look. You don't have to change the whole compressor.
Really?
You can just change the head.
Oh.
You can buy them separate. But you may tap on it lightly with a hammer and it engage. But either way, it's going to be the contacts of the coil of the clutch. You could buy the clutch separate. Okay.
Did you recommend the light?
You got to have a tool. Earlier years used a standard pipe puller, clutch puller, and then later on they went to metric threads.
So if they got a bad compressor, before they go out and buy that...
They've got to release the freon and take the lines off and everything. And you can buy the whole compressor with the clutch and everything on it. But if you really wanted to, you could just change it. If you had the tools to take the clutch off with, You can just change the clutch. You don't have to change the compressor.
And before you go changing the clutch, you recommend they'll give it a couple taps to see if the...
Yeah, I've done that. And if you just tap it and it engages, pretty obvious the clutch is bad. The contacts in the coil.
Contacts in the coil are bad. But that would help it and make it work, or do you still have to replace the clutch?
No, you have to replace it.
Okay, you might get away with it. Yeah.
Well, I've done it. Next time it may not work.
Jason said, I remember you...
I got one and went and changed it.
Did you do that to our lawnmower?
My S10 had that, and the same thing.
You did that to our lawnmower?
And I changed it, and anyhow, it didn't, same thing.
Our lawnmower wasn't working, and Jason was out there, and he was scratching his head, and you went and tapped it and walked away, and it worked again.
Well, the starter?
Yeah.
Basically the same thing. But
no, he said you banged on the carburetor a couple times.
Oh, that may be a float or something.
It was funny, though, because he was... Alrighty, so air comes out everywhere on the auto. We did all that. The air comes out everywhere on the auto. We did all that. That has to do with the vacuum and all the... Okay. The compressor, that's done. Any how-to presentations that you can think of that we didn't cover?
Any kind of thing you want.
Could be, of course.
I mean, anything.
Action on power module plugs, okay?
The what?
Power, okay, the green...
Blower module?
Yeah, you said, I'm looking for how-to presentations. What about the power module plugs?
No, that's...
You said there could be a loose connection on the power module plugs for the compressor.
The blower module.
Power module.
Well, on AC?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a blower module.
And that the compressor won't kick in. There'll be a loose connection.
No, only with electronic air.
Electronic.
Only with electronic air.
Alrighty, and then...
The wire in the 90, that all changed because the green wire, it wasn't a clutch engage signal. It actually went through the blower module on 86 through 89.
Okay. And then the control head not on auto 60 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, you got to see if you have the...
You want me to put that first, like...
out of the control head.
You know, like when the compressor won't kick in, shouldn't I tell them to do that first?
Yeah, you got to have AC on.
Yeah.
High speed.
Yeah.
Max cold.
And in auto 60 degrees.
It doesn't matter, auto or manual, either one. But just AC, max cold, high speed.
Mm-hmm. And then see if the compressor. Okay. Rear defogger, not frogger, rear defogger. C49 inoperative. Check to see if relay clicks when top right button put.
What years, Donna?
84, 89. We're only working on 84 to 89.
Okay, 84 and 85.
Okay.
84 through 89, manual, rear defogger.
Manual.
The manual
check that relay.
Defogger was an option.
On what year?
Until 84 through 87, it was an option.
Okay, they have rear defogger.
49. There were cars came without it. They did not have heated mirrors on these cars, and they did not have a rear defogger. Anytime you've seen a car with no rear defogger, it did not have heated mirrors.
Okay.
It is controlled by relay. The manual, the relay is part of the control head, and you can replace it by removing the control head and unplugging it with 2 quarter-inch screws coming off of it.
We talked about how to test it to see if it gets 12 volts, right?
You got a hot wire coming in, and then you got a purple wire that goes out, and you test the light on the purple wire to see if you have an output, and the light will come on, and you should have voltage coming out on the purple wire, which goes through the dash harness to the rear body harness to the right rear strut rod.
Okay, so you have not. Which is this, for the defogger relay?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can actually put your hand on the mirror and feel if it gets warm, too.
Oh.
They'll have a heated mirror if you've got a rear defogger.
Right, but this is the symptom. It's inoperative.
The inoperative is that, well, what I'm saying is you could have a heated mirror but no rear defogger.
Oh, okay.
You might have voltage, but the left side's ground. The voltage comes in the rear gas rod. The gas rod is the conductor of electricity. It's insulated on the bottom and it's going to glass on top. So it actually, if you put a test light on that rod with a rear defogger on, your voltage is going to be 12 volts.
Then what's the problem?
Well, you may have a bad rod.
Oh, what do you do about that?
You change it.
You know if you have a bad rod.
You check to see if you got voltage on it.
Okay, and if you do?
And if you do, then you go up to the grid on your rear defogger. You put a test light from ground to that grid and follow the grid all the way over to the center of the car. You should see the test light come on until you get to the center. Then after time and resistance builds up, the voltage will increase on the other side. The left rear strut rod ground is a ground wire going into the body. And you take a digital ohmmeter and put it on it, and it should be 0.01 ground. Shows good ground on that wire on the left strut rod on the bottom. Now, you got to find out, is it both strut rods good? If, say, you had a good right rod but no left rod. Well, if you ran a jumper wire from the outer end of the strut rod down to the ground wire coming off the body, and it worked, you got a bad strut rod.
Both or one?
We may just have one bad.
And you do replace them both at the same time or one?
Not necessarily, no.
How do you replace them?
You unclip them off the balls on the ball studs and unplug the wire. Take a little screwdriver and reach in and release a spring clip.
And then that would fix the rear defogger.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got to make sure you got voltage.
Yeah. We're going to go through that procedure.
Put a test light on the right rod with a rear defogger on. Engine's got to be running.
Okay.
If the engine's not running, it'll time out in about 10 seconds. Very voltage sensitive.
Voltage sensitive, now check power to see if relay.
That's how you can tell if your rear defogger's working. It's a real simple test. Turn the rear defogger on. You'll see about 0.2 of a volt fluctuate when you turn the rear defogger on.
You see it with your eyes?
On your voltage. Digital voltage readout. You will see 0.2 of a volt variation when you turn the rear defogger on.
Is the left rod the negative?
Left rod's ground, right rod's power.
Did you think that was funny, Gordon, when I said you could see it with your eyes?
Well, whatever you want to look at. It's according to how you look at it.
Okay.
That's blonde troubleshooting.
This is called C4 blonde troubleshooting.
Yeah. Well, that means anybody can fix a 10.
Exactly. That's exactly right. This is why it's perfect. I have another question, though. So, you know, we went down the whole fault tree for the rod. Now, there could be other reasons, right, like the relay?
Yeah, the relay could be bad, but I'll say if it's electronic error, even you go underneath the left dash and you go to the purple wire, and then you see if you got an output voltage on that wire. If you have no output voltage and your orange wire is hot coming in, and then you got a black wire that comes off your programmer, okay, then you ground that black wire and it activates. That means your programmer's controlling it, not the relay.
Is that how it's supposed to work?
Yeah.
Okay, so that means...
You got an ignition on circuit. You got a gauge circuit feed. You got a black wire. you got a constant hot input wire, and then you got an output wire.
Is this on the programmer?
Oh, no, on the relay.
Whoa, that's a lot for a relay.
Well, 4 wires or something.
Oh, wires.
If you ground that black wire, it activates the relay, sending voltage out.
Does that mean the
on a purple wire? The purple wire goes through the dash harness to the right, and it goes out to the heated mirrors, and then it goes to the rear body harness to go back to the strut rod.
Okay.
And you got voltage there. Say your mirrors heated up.
Well, how did we know about the relay yet? We were testing the relay, and I don't know whether or not it's...
There's a voltmeter on the purple wire to see if you got voltage output.
And if you don't?
And then you ground the black wire?
Yeah.
And you don't, you got a bad relay.
And if you do?
If you got power on the pink with a black stripe wire, 39 circuit, and then you got a 440 circuit that is an orange wire hot all the time, you got to have voltage there. And then you got to have a ground wire. The ground wire goes to the programmer.
Right.
Or the switch on a relay on a manual. But grounding on the electronic, grounding the black wire activates it. Turning the switch on a manual activates to send it out on a purple wire.
Okay.
And for one thing, a manual, the light would come on, telling you to send a signal out. If it does not send a signal out, then you got powers, you got a bad relay.
And replacing the relay's easy?
On a manual, you got to take the control head out, and then you got 2 screws that hold it on. You just unplug it, and then it's a little box like, and you just replace it. And then on an electronic, it's taped to the harness wire on 86 and 87. It's attached to the programmer. You just take a screw out and unplug it. The manufacturer of the 86 to 89 is a Maltron. It's a shiny aluminum-looking relay. It's the only relay like that with a little aluminum bit tab on it.
Is that relay going to be the most common cause for the rear defogger?
Not really. Bad strut rods or grounds.
Uh-huh.
Or the wire may be broke.
Where?
Or it's broke on the end of the grid going to the strut rod.
All right.
They get broke off pretty easy.
Yeah, and how do you...
You've probably seen them.
The wire repair spiel?
Oh, that's soldering. You got to solder it back on. It's very difficult to solder.
Oh.
Upside down. I just take the rear hatch glass off and knock the pins out. And if it's got a third brake light, I take the wire loose, knock both pins out with it's a little less than a 1/4 inch punch, long punch, bend it at a 10-degree angle on the end. I knock the pins out, turn the glass up on the bench upside down, solder it, and put it back on.
Okay.
That's the way I do it. It's pretty hard. You got to have real low amperage soldering, real low wattage.
What is that for again?
Huh?
Wire on the hatch.
The wire on the hatch glass, right?
It breaks off the grid where it's soldered
Got
to
it.
the grid.
Okay, good.
Not uncommon.
Not uncommon, okay.
Very common thing. Some of these very sensitive. People put stuff in and out of the car, or they bump it.
I'm going to create all of the records based on all of the different possibilities, and then we're going to go back through all the records, Gordon, and then in your opinion, in order of which, people should click, or look at the first thing, the second thing, the third thing, I'll create the records.
This is another thing, too, on these strut rods. They may check good when they're up, but when they're down, they're bad.
Oh, so they should check both ways.
You have to check it both ways.
Check it both ways.
And what it is, you'd have to crawl in the back with an ohm meter with a down and put a test light on it. But that rod is the continuity wire. I mean, if you touch that rod anywhere with a voltmeter, you'll have voltage on it. Rear defogger's on.
Oh yeah. Okay, so you put in here, check to see if relay clicks when top right button is pushed. So would it be...
That's electronic.
Right, so you would be something like, when you push the button,
come on, and you should hear the relay click.
You should hear you always hear...
the left dash.
Uh-huh. If not, power to the C49 relay. If not, check power to it.
Yeah, you got to check power to it.
So could it be anything else, like fuses?
Well, yeah. It could be a fuse.
Uh-huh.
But you got a thermal fuse on those. Under the 84s and 5s, it was kind of an inline thermal fuse. It's a metal fuse.
Oh, I remember, yeah.
Underneath your right dash, it wasn't in the main fuse box. And then we put it in the main fuse box, and it's a thermal that when it gets hot, it goes open, and when it cools off, it goes close.
What year did you put it in the main dash?
I think it's 86, 84, 85, maybe just 84 had it separate. Had it on a connector underneath the right dash. You'd have to drop the panel down to get to it.
How do you test if the fuse is bad?
Just take an ohmmeter across it and see if you got continuity.
To the fuse?
Yeah, it would. The fuse gets hot. If it was shorted, say something was shorted out, the fuse would get hot and go open. And it cools down and goes closed.
Yeah.
Power Seats has this same fuse.
Okay. Fuse for the AC system, 25 amp fuse box compressor, 5 amp on evaporator unit blower, courtesy light fuse,
Yeah.
power to control head, gauge fuse,
Yeah.
power to programmer and control head.
Yeah.
So you check all those for the rear defogger or no?
No.
Uh-huh.
Gauge fuse.
Okay.
Your thermal fuse.
There's nothing in here about no thermal fuse.
Well, it's your rear defogger fuse.
Oh, okay.
Because that's a high draw, current draw.
I forgot to ask you on the compressor won't kick in, Freon's okay. A couple of challenge questions for that one.
On an 84, no voltage going to the compressor. 84 and 85, no voltage going to the compressor. Even if you unplug the cycling switch, what would be the first thing to check?
I don't know.
The 3-wire connector on the AC harness for a jumper tie banded to the AC liquid line in front of the evaporator casing.
What are you checking for?
Corrosion.
Corrosion. Okay.
Number one thing.
If that one switch. Okay. What else can you... Give me a couple more. You have any more? Let's see. Compressor won't kick on, but...
Well, you have voltage on the... the first thing you do, if you have a good ground wire and it's grounded and you got voltage to the green wire, that's the first thing you check. If you've got that and it doesn't work, then your compressor's bad.
All right. And we went into that procedure.
Yeah, put it.
Okay. The rear defogger inoperative, couple of questions.
What's a good indication that the rear defogger relay or rear defogger is not working other than just temperature-wise? When you turn the rear defogger on, you should see the voltage drop or hear the relay click.
Oh, that's how you could tell it's not working?
Be the first thing to do. Well, another thing, too, engine must be running.
I was going to ask you about that.
Engine has to be running or it'll time out. check the voltage at the right rear front of the strut rod wire?
As far as a challenge question,
or the fuse, simple thing as that.
yeah. There's not much more to it. Strut rod, relay, or fuse.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm getting good. I'm not kidding. I know I'm going to learn something. What about a question, though, for you just gave me one, the first thing you checked for,
well, the light on your dash should come on. You should hear the relay click, and you should see the voltage drop.
Okay, see the voltage drop.
Now, if the light doesn't come on your dash, indication is it's not sending the signal to engage.
And that could be relay?
No, it could be a control head. It could be a relay on a manual, but it might be a control head on the electronic.
Okay, so the rear defogger on electronic, if the light does not come on, and it won't engage, the rear defogger.
Now, you got to find out and go to the go to the relay.
Go to the relay.
And to see if you're getting a ground off the black wire on electronic.
Relay's okay. Could it be the control head?
Yeah.
How do you figure that out?
Well, one thing, the indicator light don't come on.
Oh, yeah. So that's what the indicator light doesn't come on, and then...
Well, that's a very good indicator that the control head's not functioning.
Could it be any other reason why that light won't come on?
No, that's internal.
It's just
that control head.
How do you fix it?
You change control head.
And that's easy, huh?
Well, you got to take your bezel off and procedure like you're changing a driver information panel or any radio or anything. You got to take the bezel off. And
do they sell these control heads, or are they rebuilt?
Yeah, they sell them, and I guess maybe people redoing them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or Jason probably has calls for them all the
Oh,
time.
yeah. We get the rebuilt. We sell them rebuilt.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm done with all of that, unless you could think of something else, Gordon, in regards to the compressor, the rear defogger, fuses, anything to do with the airflow or the air conditioning. What else can be going on with the C68 air conditioning system? If malfunction codes, we went through codes, right?
Yeah.
We went through the vacuum, the airflow. We went through all of it, I think. 84 through 89, electronic, manual, coupe, all that stuff. Are there any special products that we could offer that are to that specific category?
No, not other than just the
products, no.
Just a voltmeter you gotta have.
And then any more challenge questions that you could think of in regards to the air conditioning? Some troubleshooting challenge questions that are, symptoms and...
Well, just anything. I mean, just something don't work. Like AC stays hot all the time.
The AC what?
AC doesn't work, or I have a heat all the time. No AC. On electronic air, 86 to 89. You check to see if your lever's good.
Lever's first.
Flies, but if it's free, then you take the blower module. The blower module out and see if your door's moving. Maybe your rod come off. Door removed, and you look to see if the rod's disconnected.
Are there any relays or modules or grounds or anything else that, we talked about the corrosion, we talked about...
Well, the blower module has affected not having a blower. It might be a blown fuse link at the starter or something like that. But
okay, so the blower module...
It's got a power constant hot all the time, and it's an 85 through 89 is the only fuse link at the starter, because 84 and 85, the fuse links were at the starter, and 86 it went to a block.
So the possibility that it's not the actual blower module.
No, it may may not have power going to it, may not have ground going to it.
Okay. How do you check that?
I gotta take about a 2-minute break.
What?
I gotta take about a 2-minute break.
Oh, you bet. You want to call me back?
Yeah.
Okay, bye, Gordon.